Hello everybody and welcome back to Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragonqueen. Today we are going through and telling you how we ran the Preludes and Chapter 3, which for some reason this is the first Wizards of the Coast book that we've ran as a module that starts the game on Chapter 3 rather than Chapter 1. So that feels a little weird to say, but we're going to be hopping into that and giving you some advice for, either people who are returning to Krynn or new Dungeon Masters. But before we do that, we're going to introduce ourselves, let you know who we are and why we are telling you this info. First of all, I'm Kelly. I'm your Dungeon Master for the night, and I'm very excited to be here because I get to share my love of teaching and my love of Dragonlance with you. I'm very excited about this. Let's go around a big circle, introduce ourselves, and then let's jump right in because we got a lot of info to convey. Christine.
Hello, I'm Christine. I use she, her pronouns, and in this game I play Kelara, which is our human cleric of Mishakal. You can find me as Lady Liliana in Twitch and Twitter and TikTok for the most part.
Nice. All right, over to Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris. I go by Blogg in the chat and on some other things and on the Discord. And you can find me pretty much exclusively on Dork Tales. You find me somewhere else like TikTok or Twitter, or actually, I don't think I Twitter.
It's probably the best these days.
Yeah. Like it'll just say I'm only there for the memes and there's nothing on there. So I play Godfrey Highvalor, the Squire of Salamnia, it's been fun so far playing him, and looking forward to seeing where this game goes.
I'm excited to do that too. Down to Robin.
Hello, I'm Robin. I use she, her pronouns. So does Rizira Moonbrush, our Kender swashbuckler rogue, which I'm back. I never left you guys, but I looked pretty bad at the end of last game. I had COVID, so this is why I sound just lovely. But yeah, I am happy that we are doing this little how-to run because I'm still recovering. And I get tired very easily.
Yeah, so last week, Robin, as soon as game ended, you discovered that you had COVID, which was kind of a shock, kind of a surpase. But I'm glad.
Yeah, that was a fun, emotional thing to deal with at midnight.
I bet.
But yeah, you can hear all about that on the podcast that Kelly and I recorded during my time off work. So that was fun.
It's good. It's over on the Patreon right now. All right, over to Cal.
Hello. My name is Cal. I use he, him pronouns. I play Aurontiros, our mystical, mysterious elven friend. And I'm excited to see what's
shaking.
What's shaking? What's baking?
What's shaking and bacon? Probably chicken.
Whose mind I can meld with.
God, that was so good. And finally, over to Jen.
Hey, I'm Jen. I use she, her pronouns, as does Hazeal Nightgranite, our lunar sorcerer. And yeah, happy to be here. My internet's doing weird things today, so I apologize if I get like stuttery and laggy and all of that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at least we don't have to worry that it's game and it's just this. I mean, this is great, but
yep.
Yeah.
All right.
A little less pressure.
So Cal and Jen, I think this is the first time you've been in a how-to episode. So the way that the structure is going to work, and for those who are tuning in for the first time, is that I'm going to go through the module as we have done it so far. We are only going to talk about things that have happened. I am not going to say anything that is a spoiler for future chapters because the players have not experienced that yet. However, they are allowed to know some pretty basic things, or I'm going to assume some pretty basic things that they are going to assume for the future. If you are going into this and do not want to be spoiled for anything at the start of Shadow of the Dragonqueen, come back in the next episode. But if you've already watched up to this point in our show, you should already know all of this stuff or have a sense of it. Also, if you want to ask us specific questions, I've polled around on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and YouTube for questions that people might have of the module and advice for them running. Those are going to be answered at the end of the session. And if you have any more that you'd like to ask, put them in the chat right now and we'll add them to the list and we'll get to them. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to jump in and we are going to start just discussing the module as it is and offering advice. So why don't I start right off the bat with setting up the module? My first suggestion is read Dragonlance. Even if it's just the first book, if you're jumping into this blind without any sense of what Dragonlance is, you might want to do that. I would encourage you to get your players to do it as well. However, I know it is really difficult to get people to read in general. If you must, give them the wiki. Give them the Dragonlance movie, the animated one with Kiefer Sutherland that is terrible, is on YouTube for free. You can look it up. You can send them that.
That was a fever dream.
No, yeah, basically. It's a Testify sorcery.
The audiobook is also quite good.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna
really
say
helpful
that's
that.
how I consumed a lot. I'm still on book 2, but yeah.
Yeah,
It would
for
sit
when
in
you're
audiobook.
driving.
13.
1.5 speed if you want to, all the good, you can
Yeah.
change all those things.
Nice. I mean, if that's how you want to do it, like do it. It's a great way to consume media. We are not sponsored by Audible, but could be. So some things about Dragonlance that are different from mainstream D&D that would be really useful for you to take a look at is, for example, races and lineages. Regardless of how you describe it, if you're looking at things from the connotation of dwarves, elves, etc., Dragonlance has a different set of those than you would normally see in a 5e game. For example, in traditional Dragonlance, there aren't any tieflings. There are not Dragonborn, really, kind of. That's a little iffy. But there aren't things like, you don't really see half-orcs. Kind of. Maybe you could kind of hand wave that, but you don't see a lot of those.
I think there's like one that was
It's like a
written by,
hobgoblin.
like, no, there was like one orc or half orc in one book once that was not really ever explained.
Exactly,
like,
right?
At all.
Because
Like,
orcs aren't really
I
much of a
think.
thing. So, yeah, half ogre. Exactly. And one of the things that you should look at when you're doing this is talk to your players and see whether or not they want the vanilla or if they want the 5e version of Dragonlance. Whatever you do at your table, totally valid. It's your table. Anybody who complains about it, if they're outside your table, they don't matter. And if they're at your table, well, do a poll. Vote on it. See what people want. If you want to do things that involve just the races in the book, though, I've had a lot of people ask me, well, where do you find info about that? And here's the thing. It's in the PHP. If you go into the PHP and look at the different sub-races, they already have included things from Faerun, Greyhawk, and Kryn in this book. They give you examples. Like for the elves, they say, for example, that if you go into the subcategories, High Elves, the Sun Elves of Faerun, they say that, where is it? The Sylvanesti of Dragonlance are listed right in there. So you might have glazed over it, but it is just right in the rules, right there. And they give you some examples. However, if that doesn't fit what you want to do with that, like for example, Cal, with your character, we kind of, we played around because you took Wood Elf and they kind of assume that like, that's more Kaganesti in the core book.
Yeah, right. It's more Kaganesti, which are kind of like the tribal elves.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, those guys are pretty cool. But then when you and I did the backstory, and it was like, well, I like what mechanically they do, but I don't want to be that. And so being very malleable about like the sub race tweaks worked out fine.
And be flexible. Like it doesn't hurt to be flexible, right? So
and that's one of the neat things about like this game with how simple like the set is. It's so easy to just change thematics.
Yeah, just reskin,
and adapt it to like the fluff of your character, and it doesn't. The mechanics are still the same. It's just different coating or of paint, right? Like
yes, exactly. Like a human.
Well, I think
human
like you want to. I was gonna say, just like it's a conversation you'd have, and if you are a huge fan of Dragonlance, and there's other players that are huge fans of Dragonlance and really want to stay into the races thing, that's just something that you also need to bring up as well with your players, being like, because like the races that we have are good races. Like I know even if there wasn't Kender, like I would be happy to do like the slightly more simple basic races. Halfling, yeah.
Halfling works for Kender if you don't want to use Kender.
Yeah.
Gnome works for Kender technically because they're Gnome race. But just discuss with your players whether or not you want the vanilla, which the book will tell you what is the vanilla races. I'd use the Minotaurs from Theros if you wanted to bring them in as well, because Minotaurs are a big part of the lore, especially if you've ever read like the books with like Kaz the Minotaur. But if you want to do like all sorts of weird races, you know, bring in tieflings, Asamar, bring in turtles, whatever. A lot of people in the chat have been saying that you could use like other world, like isekai anime style, where it's like, oh, I'm a traveler from another world. You can totally do that. With that in mind, if you're going to do that, you want to stay kind of true to the Dragonlance mythology, I would tie it into the Return of the Gods. Say that the Return of the Gods, Takasis's return, the dragon armies, etc., might have sucked people in from other worlds. That's a good way to hand wave it and be like, oh, this is why there's tiefling now. But talk to your players about whether or not you want there to be any type of systemic prejudice there. Because if you have someone coming in that looks like a tiefling, I keep picking on tieflings because they look like devil people, that's going to look weird. If I was walking down the street in the real world and there was someone with devil horns and a tail walking down the street that wasn't a costume, I'd probably look twice. But if you want the players just to be, you know, kind of accepted and the players don't want to roleplay that up, it's your table. That might be something better for you.
Dragonborn. They're going to look like beefy draconians.
Yeah.
And a lot of people... And just say that like they're draconians, because there are draconians that broke free from Takas's army.
Yeah.
Right? So you could play a good aligned draconian. Just say it's a dragonborn, then you don't have to do the rules changes. And you get a breath weapon.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody wants a breath weapon. Don't give me like
oh my god, yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
I
can
would
give us
rather
one.
explode
It's
on
true.
death
One person.
than take a breath weapon.
And
Yeah,
you
so
know,
that-
honestly,
yeah,
something like exploding on death, the character's dead anyway, so why not go out with a bang?
We're
Right?
going to talk about going out with a bang in a minute. But yeah, like a metallic draconian, one that just failed the process, do it. Okay, so that's my call on restricting races. Also, let's talk about the biggest thing that people complained about when this module started, which is Kender. The amount of Kender hate on the internet is tremendous. And it's because Kender got a really bad rap in previous editions. Robin, you've been playing a Kender exemplary. Exemplarily. You've been doing it perfect. I've been loving every second of it, and I'm so glad that you did it. But I can see where a lot of people would go off with Kender.
Totally.
Do you have any advice for how you have been playing Kender that you have managed to rope it in, and what you've been focusing on that? And does anybody have any advice or opinions on the way Robin's been playing it that might be helpful to people who want to play Kenders?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing with Kender that you want to focus on is not the borrowing and the stealing. Like it's a thing that they do, and it's because they don't see it like that. But I really, like, when I was building Riz, I really thought about, it'll be fun to do that, but I want to really focus on the childlike wonder that is the Kender, is that they are innocent in their, like, kind of the maturity level where they're still that child. And that's what I really, like, want to focus on when playing her, is that innocence and that, like, the lack of fear that you have when you're a kid, like, to do stuff. Kids are fearless, and they will hurt themselves and then maybe realize that they did something wrong. Like,
But maybe only if you cry, like, or if you
Yeah.
look afraid.
Yeah, it's the whole that
exactly.
joke about kid gets hit with a meteor. Just don't mention it. Be like, oh, that's nice, sweetie. And the kid is like, I
Yeah.
got hit with a meteor.
Yay!
But it's like, so I really, really wanted to focus on that, where it's like, I'm not gonna, like, you know, I do focus on the looking in my bag and seeing what can happen, but it's more like I'm not purposely trying to fuck over my party. I actually asked, because I think it was in a chat
comment.
or YouTube comment. Yeah. What I asked for my like the rest of the party was to give a list of things that they wouldn't mind ending up in my bag at some point that I pull out for comedic effect or to lighten a scene or something. And it's like Riz isn't gonna take it. Like, I'm not taking it if it's like, oh yeah, suddenly like when Kelly had Riz have Godfrey's pommel, that was on the list that Chris had sent me of things that I can have. And obviously I'm gonna give it back and not take it because Kender don't see it as like taking it. It's like, oh, I was just holding this for you, it fell out of your bag kind of thing. So it's really something that if you want to explore that aspect of the Kender, is that something that you want to confer with your party and make sure that they're okay to that you do that, and B, then they give you stuff that's okay, because I'm not going to go steal Kalara's staff because that's her source. Yeah,
idea,
exactly.
And which was fantastic.
I think like the big thing is not playing it in that troll player way. So it really depends on the player and the whole, well, that's what my character would do. You turn that off when you play a frickin' Kender. Yeah. You turn that off. It doesn't matter what they would do. You are in control of them because they are your character.
When you're playing
you
Kender,
cannot be an asshole to your friends.
When you're playing Kender, you want to play yes and always forward.
Yeah.
There you
absolutely.
go. Yeah.
Yes, it's very much a yes and character.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like I gave you a list of things and there were a couple on there that I'm like, I'm fine out of character if you take this. There just might be consequences.
Oh,
yeah,
and that's the thing. Like for me, like as like me being that, it's like, yeah, no, I want you guys to like, you know, slap Rizira on the wrist and stuff like that, because I think A, it's funny, and B, it's just like, how did this get in here? It's very much like a thing, and they had that on the Unearthed Arcana when that was released, for having a Kender pouch, and they took it away probably because people were like complaining about it and all the Kender hate that it got. So when it happened and it wasn't in the book, I actually asked Kelly to make a feat, because we all get a starting feat at level 1.
Yep.
And I was like, I actually really like the idea for role play of having this bag that has just random shit in it that I can pull from, because I think it adds to the character and it adds to Kender, because there's a great quote in book 2 saying that an item that has been in a Kender's house for 3 weeks is considered an heirloom, a family heirloom, because like if it's not nailed down in a Kender's house, it will just get borrowed and stolen away. So if you've had something for 3 weeks, it's considered a family heirloom.
So I want to talk a little bit about this feat, because I've had a lot of people ask about it. I haven't published it yet because the OGL debacle happened. And also I have 100 item list that I'm curating for it. That's just, I haven't had time to do it. So I'm going to share the basic details, and then I'm going to try to have the basic version of this up on our Discord within the next, like, I don't know, 24 hours or so. So you should be able to get it there. So the feat that I allowed Robin to take was this one called Light-Handed. Requirement, Kender. You gain proficiency in Sleight of Hand. You also gain expertise with that skill, which means your proficiency is bonus is doubled on any ability checks. So this is the, I believe the, what is it, expert skill, or the expert feat?
Skilled or skill master or something.
That's what it was. So skilled. But normally skilled gives you a +1 to an attribute, or to an ability score. Instead of that, you have this additional ability. You have the habit of finding useful objects that have found their way into your possession through no fault of your own. As an action, you can search your pockets or a similar container you're carrying and pull out a random object from the table below. This object leaves your possession after 1 hour, though you may find it again on future rolls. You may use this ability a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and regain all uses when you finish a long rest. Kender should be aware many of these items have owners who tend to become strangely belligerent when someone finds them. And it is a list of 20 items. Everything from some gold pieces, steel coins, which we'll talk about in a minute, random trinkets on the trinket table, rations, to a complete change of clothes, which if you choose, you can roll 1d4 for size and like the type of clothing if you'd like. If you wanted to be a woman's dress, maybe that's a 2. I don't know. A small woman's dress or a child's dress would be like a 1, maybe. Then there's an advanced Kender borrow table, which is a D100 that I'm doing, which goes everything from a prosthetic arm, like, you know, for the rocket raccoons among us, to a pouch full of screws and bolts, to a spyglass with a cracked but functional lens, to a smoking pipe, one for smoking, one that is not smoldering, although maybe, someone suggested Yo Mama go in the book, which I have replaced with a small book of erotic poetry called Thick Solamnic Matrons.
Oh my god, I want to pull that out.
Okay. But I also have some rules that are going in this. PC theft. If you want to encourage banter and engagement between Kender and other players without violating player agency, ask each player for a list of things, as per Robin's idea, that they don't mind having borrowed from their inventory. This item list can be given to the DM or the Kender and used to add drama or excitement. Everything not on the list is assumed to be nailed down. So if you don't want to put your family signet ring on that list, that signet ring is not stealable by the Kender. It's not, unless the player wants to engage in some type of antagonistic behavior. It is known to be off the table. What's wrong?
On the bottom of the list, I had all the party stuff that I could steal on this thing, and you've deleted it. No.
Have I?
That's all right. Our inventory's changed a little bit. We should give you new ones.
I'll just go to a backlist. And then I also have an additional mechanic on there called Passive Sleight of Hand. Kender are one of the only lineages in all tabletop role-playing games that should have such a juicy ability. You can use this as a DM to provide clues, keys, needed items if they are trapped in a jail cell and you just need them out of that jail cell. When the scene is getting boring, the Kender can find the key. You can just decide this happens. You can check the Kender's passive sleight of hand and dictate that they have an item if you think it's that difficult. Even more fun, alternatively, you can roll sleight of hand versus the Kender's own passive perception to see if they don't notice they acquire something. Because they do it compulsively. And given that they're taking this feat, most likely, that means that they're probably going to have a pretty good roll versus their passive perception. So this is something
mine are equal. Mine are equal.
Are they actually equal? Damn.
My passive sleight is 18. My passive perception is 18.
Now I'm going to mention a product that I have not purchased, so I do not know its quality. But on the Dungeon Masters Guild, on dmsguild.com, there is a book called Tasselhoff's Pouches of Everything. Which has just hit gold. It's a very well purchased book and is now going to be available for print soon, which is why I have not bought it yet. I'm waiting for it to go into gold waiting for it to go into hard copy so I can have a physical manifestation of it. It may have additional things that are really useful. If you're looking for something to spice up your Dragonlance game, consider that book. There's also the Dragonlance Companion on there that I have not read as well. Okay, so are we good to moving off Kender?
I was just going to say, Jen, go for it.
Thing. Yeah, just from the kind of non-Kender side of things, that whole asking PCs for a list of things, it's a great way to add that drama, to maybe add things that might not come out otherwise from your backstory, because I know there's a couple of things that might come out with Riz having them, that, you know, suddenly there's an interesting point of my backstory that wouldn't necessarily come out otherwise. And so I really love the idea, and I just really like how he handled it.
One person mentioned in the chat, actually, I think it was Buddy, mentioned that one of the things that they had done with a Kender was that they would use everybody else in the party's pouches as their storage pouches for whatever random pieces of stuff that they picked up. So you'd get random neat rocks, random buttons, crap like that showing up in your pouches randomly. So nothing like malicious, it seems like, but that's kind of cute too. Way to handle it.
The other way around, like everyone else ends up with things.
Yeah, so like once they got comfortable with their party, it seems like a thing of like, well, that's all my I have access to all that anyways. So.
What's this? Oh, I don't want it. Here you go.
Kender,
I don't have any space. I'm gonna put it in that pouch.
Yep.
If you're playing Kender, you should be playing for the fun of the entire party.
And I have one thing to comment to my fellow forever DMs. The problem was never with Kender. The problem was with... Y'all remember playing D&D when you were teenagers? It's what my character would do, like Christine said, and being all like, oh, that's just what Kender do, and passing notes to your DM and like low-key PvP. No. I we're adults.
If that's how
not
you want to run
fun.
your table, that's fine. That's not how we like to do it.
Exactly. Well, and that's what session zeros are for. And hey, what do you guys want to do? Are you okay with greedy characters stealing the gold and that kind of thing? And it's like,
I've had
everybody
too many
likes
people
different
and
things.
roommates steal stuff from me in real life that I don't like that.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
a fantasy thing we want to. Yeah, you don't need to imagine it when it's happened.
But
I
yeah,
did
yeah,
once
you
play a
bring
exactly.
up
rogue
a
So
great
I
point.
don't
where,
think the problem was ever with Kender.
yeah, I did once play a rogue where the entire party gave me the gold to hang on to. I was like, why would you do this?
Well, I think that's what you all gave Riz the steel to hold on to. It's like it's gonna end up there anyway. It's like, okay,
The chances
least you
of
know where it
someone
is.
taking it from you are slim, though.
it's true.
Yeah,
So-
I think I just want to add on, like, I do think that the wonder that you brought to Rizira and with how the Kender is played, and combination of like the idea that you got, and I'm not sure who did we have a username so we could credit to the person who came up with that idea, or
No, I forget. It was a YouTube thing.
Okay.
Oh god,
That's,
might have been session 0. I
Probably.
can
it
look
was
up what we're-
fantastic. It was
It was
an
it was a, it was
absolutely
a, it was an
fantastic idea.
absolutely amazing idea. Whoever did this, and if you're in
And-
the chat, please.
And I think
say
Kelly nailed
something,
it
'cause-
too. Like you're playing it for the fun of everyone, and it's Kender is a great way to keep the game moving with that kind of a wonder, and you're not trolling the other players. Like it's
No,
great.
it's not. It's not fun. I want you guys to be in on this stuff. So I think like that, it gives an in, and it gives that sense of camaraderie because you're in on the plan with me.
Yeah.
By consenting and giving me the list, you're in on this thing, and it's suddenly, it's a consent based thing.
Yeah, it's fun for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Let's bounce through some quick ones right now. So that's our feeling on Kender. That's under there. Remember, magic items in this game are going to be a big deal. Kryn, the normal people in the world don't tend to have magic items. It's only the mages and those who are special who have them. So when you get a magic item, even downplay it. Like, it is definitely when Ispen Greenshield's shield is given to the players, it's a +1, but the module still leaves it very ambiguous whether or not it is actually magic or if it is just lucky. Play up that. Have fun with that. Okay? That's what I have there. Now, restricting spells. We are doing it in our game that Christine is the cleric. She is the only one that has any type of healing magic or restorative magic because, well, nobody else would. So there are a lot of spells that Aurontiros does not use. And there are some spells that actually Jen as Hazeal would normally have access to that we've discussed and we've swapped out. In the original write-up for Lunar Mages, they had Moonbeam. And in the final book version, they replaced that with Lesser Restoration.
Yeah, so at the 3rd level, where I get access to like 3 more spells, on top of everything else, because I have so many spells, they moved a couple of the spells around. So I think I got Lesser Restoration, I got Blindness, Deafness, and I got Alter Self. And 2 of those, I think. Oh no, they just moved one to a different moon. That's what it was. And then Moonbeam for Lesser Restoration.
Yeah.
So.
And I know that we just discussed that, and we all agreed as a table that if the divine magic coming back is supposed to be special and divine healing is supposed to be such a big thing, then it should be restricted. But if any of the other players who are spellcasters ever felt restricted by that, like for example, if Aurontiros ever felt like, oh, the healing magic was a real big part of the cleric spell list, we can always supplement something else in. To be honest, spell lists are pretty interchangeable if it's all the same level. And bards they eventually can draw from any list at higher levels anyway, so allowing a couple of swap outs is not a huge deal. Just a reminder that bards are generally not trained by the Towers of High Sorcery, so we have been flavoring that it's elven bullshit, basically.
Elven magic.
I was almost wondering if, like, keeping the bard class, but Aurontiros actually going and passing that first test would make sense.
If you want to join the Towers of High Sorcery, you could still keep the Bard class and just be not a particularly like powerful mage,
or a more versatile
I don't see why not.
you-
I don't remember from the lore if elves have something similar that's like more cultural based in Dragonlance.
something
I
to
know,
look into. Yeah,
can you
for
look
sure.
into that for me? Because I know
Yeah.
that like Dalamar does join, you know, there are a lot of mages who are elves, but is there something kind of like that over there? I don't know.
I'll have to check
Feat
it out.
changes. So quick reminder, when you're building Dragonlance characters, you get a bonus feat at level 1 and level 4 because this is a rough world. The feat selection is aight. It's real good if you are one of a couple of types of character. If you are just a normal person, for example, if you are basically looking at this group, if you are a bard or a rogue, it's not super great. You get tough or you get alert, I think.
Skilled.
Skilled.
Yeah, tough or skilled.
So feel free to customize that. I think that a lot of the racial feats from not Volos, from like either Tasha's or other things like that are pretty solid. I would restrict any of the initial combat ones like the -5 + 10 feats. Maybe take those out, but more character focused ones. Kelara took Chef as hers. Did you take Chef and Tough?
I believe so. Let me just check my feats. Yeah. So Tough was one of the ones that they specifically had, I think. And then Chef was the weird one I took. Mainly because it's to do with healing. And since I was planning on playing the very white mage healer character, I took stuff all in regards to healing, and then that helped inform her backstory of like working in the inn and being a bit of a baker and that sort of stuff. And that's part of why we also differentiated spell lists a bit, because if healing is my thing, but two other people can do it, I'm worthless in the party at that point. I have no role that somebody else can't do. And that doesn't feel good, and it's a reason why I've generally avoided that style of healing mage in the past, but I really want to play that because this is very much an old style fantasy story, and that is a character in that sort of thing. Because like if you ever watch our other games, in Shards of Nirn, Malia is also the cleric and the healer, but she does a shit ton of damage because I go for the damaging spells a lot more and work on being a damage spellcaster because I like to be a dwarf that takes no shit in that game.
So with that, like any feat that seems reasonable, I would say not lucky. I would say Aurontiros took Observant, so that's a huge bonus to Aurontiros' passive perceptions and things like that, and allows him to read lips, which he hasn't really used yet, but is going to be probably real useful in the next bit, now that we're starting to do war and intrigue.
I may have forgotten. Other than overhearing conversations in a tavern, there hasn't been a lot of use for it, but I go over my sheet every now and then, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Just a great
Right? It's fun. I just remembered about Song of Rest for
everyone forgets Song of Rest
at level 11. So it's like, hey guys, whoops, you could have been adding an extra D8 to our short rests. Oops.
Yeah, it's the feat thing, like it's like it's not that big of a deal when everyone else is getting something, right? Like and it depends on if something just makes sense for the character, and okay, it's not on the list, talk to the DM, like see if it, or if you don't like what's there, but don't want to like push for anything in particular, ask the DM, like, hey, I don't think either of these two fit. What would you recommend? Or do you think that I might be able to take? And then maybe your DM will give you 2 or 3 other suggestions of ones that they think work.
It's true. All right, so let's move on from that. So steel coins. Steel coins are a point of contention in the module because the book is written in gold. In Dragonlance, they don't use gold. Gold is not valuable. Everything is purchased with coins made of steel because they can be melted down because it's a world that's constantly at war. just change it to steel. And if your players ask about the steel economy, or if they try to do something where they try to figure out that something is literally worth its weight in steel because then you can melt it down, assume that there's a technique that is involved with blacksmiths where there is a certain amount of loss, or maybe the steel is like the steel coins are like maybe part steel and part nickel or something like that to weigh them. So
They're
they have
dimes.
they're really tiny,
Yeah.
right? Like, just hand wave it if you want the flavor. We use steel. The book says gold. Steel is what the original Dragonlance novels say, and that's what we're using because we're old heads. We're old heads.
Every
all
single
right.
one of us has said, "Oh, and how much gold was it? Steel was that?"
Right, because we're so.
Yep.
At least we're not saying how much.
It's going to happen every time anytime I have to ask for money in this
Absolutely.
game, because we've been playing like D&D for years and it's gold normally. So
I will
Force the habit.
say gold in mage. Like,
Yeah.
Right?
that is
I know.
How
It's,
many-
it's
that's
how much
real
gold.
world.
I hope you say
Real
that in
life.
Technocracy.
That's
It's like,
right.
so
That's a
how many gold back do I get in chain? I mean, damn it. How many
if you're
bucks?
if you play the Syndicate, you could be talking about gold.
That's
All right.
true.
It's true.
So let's
gold
go through the rest of the setup real quick and then start the prelude. So character backgrounds. Okay, cool. Character backgrounds generally sort you into one of a few different categories: Solemnic Knights, mages, divine casters, and other. Okay, so when you're looking at the way that your character's background and what backgrounds you select, play into that. Be mindful. Like, pick backgrounds that'll work inside of that, and definitely as a DM, try to help people pick backgrounds and have them be flexible. Have the background features be exchangeable in your games. They talk a lot about that in Tasha's Guide. It's a good book for that reason. D&D should be modular as you need it to make a good game for your table. But the major background thing is not a mechanical thing, but it is a story thing. What if someone wants to be from Vogler? The module assumes that no one is. However, when we were doing this, Christine wanted to play a small town girl, living in a lonely world. And she wanted to be from near Vogler, which meant that she had a lot of local knowledge. You can leverage that as a DM to make the town feel more like home. Especially if this character is, hell, it doesn't have to be from any one of the backgrounds in particular. Like, if we're talking about the big three, Kelara is a local divine caster. That's a big deal. That's homecoming queen stuff right there. She's like the most popular girl in town suddenly. Even the gods love her. If she's a mage, then she went away to college and came back and is now a wizard. If she's a Solemnic Knight, then awesome. She is maybe her family heritage. Maybe her family was descended from the people who used to run Thornwall before Becklin took it over. You've got lots of options, and it gives you a sense that you can kind of like inject some of that hometown pride, which we're going to get to in a minute, how you can do that and make that a bit better.
And I will say, having that connection made the last episode way harsher. I felt connected. Like, I really felt like, oh, this is not just like generic, oh yeah, evil inciting incident sort of thing. So that like you have a reason to go into the fighting of the module.
Right.
This is literally her home.
And yeah, you should make it feel like the beginning of Beauty and the Beast when you're playing.
That's really
Vogler,
what it felt like.
right?
I was totally
There goes
thinking
the
it started
baker with his bread like always, and those eggs are too expensive now.
Yep. No
Waka
cakes for
waka.
us. Too much egg.
All right. So is it a good idea? It's a totally good idea. Something else that you should be aware of, though, is that the book changes some of the things about the Tower of High Sorcery and the way that the tests work. So be sure to read that really clearly. For example, normally you go to the Forest of Wayreth, you take the test, and you live or die, and then come out as an X-Man. A wizard. It's basically the X-Men. But we had a bit of trouble looking at this because the tower is not as important. And in fact, later in the module, this is not a spoiler, but this is just something that the players, I made sure Jen was aware of. When she takes her test, it is not going to be at the Tower of High Sorcery. It is going to be later in the module, kind of like a on the road type of thing. That changes the flavor a lot. And you need to be aware of that as you are being prepared to run it. And you need to make sure that anybody who is really, really obsessed with the lore, that they know it too, because that can dampen their enjoyment. I know that it was a bit of surprise to Jen finding that out, that they changed that component of it, because so much of your background before the book, I still have not received my hard copy, by the way. So,
Oh, Jesus.
so
Yeah, the thing, I mean, it changes in the series too, which was the hard part. So like Raceland goes through a very particular path, and but he goes to like magic school as a kid, because I was listening to the stuff of his background.
Oh yeah, and Soulforge.
Yeah, so he actually goes to school as a child, and so his first test is like when he's 13.
Hmm.
So I was trying to also figure out how my character, who only discovered she had magic as an adult leaving Thorbarden,
Hmm.
that's a whole backstory bit, but um she found that out, and so it's like, how would she have be able to approach this? And there's another book I read, um uh the Night at the Eye, I think, or something like that, where there's an adult who goes to the tower to become a wizard, and like, so he does a first, like, he gets his mentor immediately without having to do any sort of test or anything. So it's like there's all these different ways of doing it. So I'm glad I got to do some part of the tower, um, because that was important to the character, but the on the road part is a little less important. So
Fair. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the Towers of High Sorcery. What I want to say as well, so more setup things, sidekicks. If you don't have a full party of 4 people, consider a sidekick. If you have a full party of 5, consider a sidekick. They're great. They can raise drama if they die. Levna almost died until I checked her stats, which is great. Level up your sidekicks. I have that further down on the list, but just I'll say it right now. Be sure to level them up, because Darrett has 4 times as many hit points as Levna, and she's a knight. So maybe check that. When you're going through your sidekicks, look at what is available and pick something that will not steal the spotlight from another party member. There's a wonderful Kender in the book that I would have loved to use, but we don't need 2. Because then you've got 2 Kender, and then you might end up as the less special Kender.
Yeah, which is nice
And
to
then they have
it's
to
nice
fight
to
to the death.
consider. Yeah, exactly. Then I'd have to fight her to the death, and then it just I would
Tender
die.
fighting is an illegal sport, underground sport in Slamnia. We don't allow that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
against the law.
But if they ever meet like on a trail or a
Yeah.
road, right? It's like there can be only one.
Oh, and for those in the chat saying thank you for the trauma with Levna, don't worry, the trauma's just begun. She took a lot of fire damage and almost died. She is going to be, she might be out of the module forever, depending on how the players handle that. Like, she may be infirm
Someone
for the
else
rest of her
almost
life.
died and got lit on
Yeah.
fire at least
Right.
once.
Yep.
So a couple of other things about that before we move on. Sidekicks. Pick one that works. If you want to include a mage, for example, I consider, because I really like the white mage that's in the book, I talked to Jen, I was like, do you mind if there's another mage? And I think you said that you'd prefer to be the only one.
it was more that I didn't
You didn't want to be redundant.
I didn't really
right?
feel a connection to any of the sidekicks, so I was fine
Mm.
if you wanted it, but I didn't care.
So, but if you do that, like, make sure that you don't have 2 of the same moon, maybe. Have a red robe and a white robe, or a white robe and a black robe. You know, have some conflict there. And
Or renegade.
Or renegade, yeah. Use the, well, you might not be able to have a renegade in the same party with a robed mage, because they might have to turn them in when you go and meet the mages in future chapters. But maybe that's drama. Maybe that's interesting, because as a sidekick, it doesn't matter. They are expendable. They are not expendable to the emotions of the players, but they are expendable to your narrative. So remember, the sidekicks are tools to help you make the game work. Don't bend over backwards if you don't want them, but if you want to include them, having Levna as Godfrey's superior means that I get to have a sarcastic boss tell him what to do.
I love it. Oh
And
my
he
God.
gets to be
I love
cooler than
Levna.
her. Like, he gets to be the one that does all the hard work. So Chris feels cool.
He's getting there. He's getting there.
He's getting there, right?
Yeah.
So, other things. The board game. You don't have to buy it. The wartime combat works just fine as is. We'll talk about the fray in a little bit. If you want to do the board game, do the board game. It might be a good board game. I don't know. We do not have a setup that allows for us to play it on stream, and I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars buying additional cameras and figuring it out, because it just wouldn't work. So we're not doing that, unfortunately. If you find a good channel that does do it, let me know. I'd love to see how the game runs. One last thing for the basic prelude, I would suggest generate between 10 and 20 NPC names to fill out the town. We have a bunch of people in the town that are NPCs that were used during the festival scene that sometimes you just need a name. You know, you need to know that Sadden Redstream is there, or Telchel Frostmail, or Jan Cornwallis, or Nihani, or Matilda Stone, or Leon Fairlight. You need to know that all of these NPCs are filling out the town because they exist. I just generated them. I went to an NPC generator that suggested some traits. I picked and chose what I wanted, and that's how I ended up with a shaved head Channing Tatum lookalike, you know? And you can use these people to fill in things where the NPCs in the game do not allow for. All right. So strongly suggest that. Just have a list. And it's always good to have an NPC, because if you have somebody who's like, oh yeah, you're competing with this thing, and this guy like ties with you and is like, yeah, hey, how about I buy you a drink, buddy? And your player goes, cool, man. What's your name? I'm John Dragonkiller. And you're like, my name is Jeff, you know? Like, you don't want to be
Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
There's always at least one Jeff.
There's always at least one Jeff. It's spelled with 3
You know what sounds like a fake name? Channing.
Channing.
That sounds like a
absolutely
D&D
is.
DM just went, this guy's name is Channing.
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 Tatum. Are you just looking at those
And his
potatoes?
friend and the wizard is Shia.
The wizard is
Shia
El
LaBeouf.
Jefe.
LaBeouf. Yeah, sure.
The
LaBeouf.
wizard Shia LaBeouf and
The buff.
Wizard.
Yeah, Wizard the Buff is
Wizard
Wizard the Buff.
He's fighting for his
Wizard the
life.
Buff. All right.
we have a wizard the buff.
Oh wait, that's what I'm playing.
All right. So
Yeah.
Just hammer.
let's tackle the prelude right now. I want to get through this pretty quick. So how to structure the preludes for maximum impact. If you're running the preludes for your players, let's start. Broken Silence. So this is the opening that has things for all the divine casters. Your goal there should be a couple things. For one, it should be to focus on the surrealness of the situation over the concrete. It's supposed to be a dream sequence, but it should be half rooted in reality. Like, the players should have this kind of mystic sense, like they're sleepwalking into something. Focus on that, and you will go right. When you're describing the scene or any details, focus on the contrast between the elements in the scene. They're going into this temple with a bunch of ruined statuary, but as they get in there, the statues recomplete themselves with starlight. So you should be going between the broken down post-cataclysm metaphor and the divine truth hiding behind it. Keep going. It sounds more complex than it is. Basically, broke versus perfect. Contrast those and make it like remind people that the world used to be much more intact. Think about the Star Wars prequels and you'll get a good sense of what you're going with here. Cataclysm, post-cataclysm. Get player input on what god they want to play. Don't force a god on people unless your player is just asking for it, because like literally asking for it, is it's just not as much fun. I would also consider adjusting your holy symbol. We decided that rather than Kelara have a holy symbol, that their holy symbol should be the staff, because
I wanted to be a
Goldman.
magical girl with a staff.
And the Dragonlance thing, right?
I mean,
And I
It's
wanted
the
to use a
first
quarterstaff as a cleric, so I didn't have a really incredible weapon. But I also wanted to look cool in the art. I didn't
Yeah,
want
your
this
art
as
looks
just plain stick. I wanted it to look awesome. So I was like, can I just have like my special staff? It doesn't have to do anything until like way higher levels. It doesn't even have to be magic or anything. I just want it to look cool.
So I would suggest that. Also, if you have multiple clerics that are going to be meeting at the same time, that's a great way to introduce them to each other in the same dream sequence. You can run that at the table or run it privately. You could also run it separately and have them have these divisions separately from each other. I would have them together if it's the same god. You can even do some cool thing where they both reach for like the holy symbol. If you decide to go with the holy symbol, and instead of them like have the holy symbol kind of break away, like you're looking at it with like 3D glasses, and it pulls into 2 holy symbols as they both touch it or something. Like, it's divine magic. Be cool with it. Be kind of surreal. Okay. And have fun.
2 halves of a medallion.
2 halves of a medallion. To combine, they become...
Classic.
Okay. Eye in the Sky, which is the mage opening. Okay. Reminder that the barb is weird and can go wherever you want it to go. I would also say make the barb mystical. Maybe it teleports. Maybe it moves around like the Tower of High Sorcery, or at least the Forest of Wayreth. Have it use teleportation where you can reach from a bunch of different places. It has a ton of doors in the inside that kind of work like a clock. So you walk in through one door, you walk out, and you're in a completely different part of the world. Cool. Who cares? This is something that's just, it's a plot device. You're never going back to the barb. It is something they threw together. Okay. Something the module does not allow for is that it assumes that your mage is going in alone, or the module states you can have an NPC tag along with them. Why not a PC? If you are looking for a place to fit some of the PCs who don't fit into the other spots necessarily, or are half casters like Aurontiros, that's a good way to introduce them. Have them tag along, have a backstory connection, or be someone who was sorted out but may not be quite ready for their own test yet. Say, okay, well, you basically have a learner's permit rather than you're going for your driver's license test. Why don't you tag along with the real mage, and maybe you'll learn something. And as they're undergoing the test, be flexible with the answers. Not everyone is going to have the exact spells the module requires, such as Jen had none of them. Instead, she used Earth Tremor?
Earth Tremor and my Warhammer. Yep.
And I'm like, that's dwarven magic, sure, why not? Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my thing about the Tower of High Sorcery. I think that's a great way to do it, and let the mages work together. And if you have multiple mages work together, make sure that each of them contributes one meaningful thing. Like, put obstacles that are specifically tailored to their skill set if it does not work out in the module. You know, maybe
know their spells.
Yeah, know their spells. Ask what their spells are in advance. Look at their sheets. Right? So yeah, that's what I think about the Eye in the Sky. Scales of War is for everyone else. So if you're not a caster and if you're not a caster, divine or arcane, you are going to get the Scales of War, which is the one where you are traveling down the road and there are draconians killing a bunch of knights. So I've read some things about how people kind of complain that this is kind of weird. The draconians kill the knights, but they should not be able to, for example, tear the plate mail apart, but they don't want players to be able to salvage 3 sets of plate mail at character creation. Cool. That's fair. Why not? It's a narrative convention. Who cares? Maybe it's crappy 15th generation armor that needed to be serviced. Maybe it's made of tinfoil. It doesn't matter.
You can tell what kind of players we are because we didn't even analyze the bodies for plate mail.
Yeah.
Oh, we would have returned it. It's theirs
exactly.
to be buried in, right?
Yeah, or handed down to their children or their family members, right?
Yeah.
Just suddenly we have a kender and plate mail. Just
clunk, clunk.
Just walking, you see their feet come up the bottom.
Yeah.
The idea that all D&D players are just shameless thieves never sat well with me.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
But yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, if somebody dies, the first person to their house doesn't keep their house.
God damn
right?
it, Billy.
Fine. Do I have to say it out loud now?
Say it. Yeah.
Okay. Players aren't shameless thieves. That's just WotC and Hasbro. Waka waka waka.
And we're done.
And we're done. I'm here all week, people.
All I was trying to say is I like that mentality, right? Like it goes to their family.
Yeah.
Right? Like if a full plate of armor is as expensive as it should be, just because you're the first person into somebody's house when they're passed away doesn't mean you keep their house. You don't keep their horse.
Squatter's law.
Yeah,
well, I mean, that is how we got our horses.
That's true.
We're looking after them.
To be fair.
They attacked us. Spoils of war.
Spoils of war. Okay, so for Scales of War, one of the things the module says is that the Draconians will attack. The Draconians are at lowered health because they were fighting with the knights. And as soon as the leader, the other type of Dragonborn, or not Dragonborn, Draconian that is there, recognizes that the players are here, he runs away. There's no real reason for him to run away aside from to be to be mysterious. And to maybe report that there were some troubles on the road, it doesn't really matter to the plot. The army's still coming. Like that one guy's not going to change anything. So if your players don't let him get away, or if someone's like, I see him at the back, well, he can't move that fast and my range is 120 feet. Well, he's at 240. Well, I just take disadvantage and I'm an elf. So who cares? Just let him die. Don't stress over the details. This module is a little persnickety in places where it says, oh, you need to make sure this one exact thing happens, but there's no real reason for that thing to happen in that particular order. And a new DM will stress out about that because they think that they're doing it wrong if they go against the way the module presents it. Very, very cut and dry way. This is not one of them. If your players kill the thing, let him kill the thing. Just have his body dissolve. Period. It's fine. The other thing that I want to suggest here is that Draconians are weird in the new version. They now, the basic Draconians, when you stab them to death, they release a cloud of petrifying gas that petrifies you, but just for a minute, which is kind of weird. I would prefer, like, I changed it so that it encases you in stone, not that it turns you to stone, but it kind of seals you, and that you come out kind of like gasping and winded, and then it's like a panicked, how long can they stay stoned like that before they die? That's scarier to me than, oh, I just turned into a statue. Okay. I added the rules from the book back. If you haven't read Dragonlance, when you kill a Draconian, it turns to stone and you lose your weapon. So what I have done mechanically is it is a DC 13 strength save when you do a finishing blow with a slashing or piercing weapon. If you fail to save, your weapon gets trapped. They turn to stone before the weapon can be pulled clear and your weapon is seized. When the if you manage to destroy the body, there is a 50% chance that your weapon is destroyed as well, or broken in some way that requires repair. Generally, the weapon is not salvageable. Magic weapons obviously are exempt from this, but that is my little mechanical change that I strongly suggest. DC 13 is enough that it's a risk at level 1 and 2, but isn't enough to really, like, they're not going to lose every weapon. Also, if they lose every weapon...
Depends. It depends on your strength, honestly.
This is true.
My Kender's a +0 to strength, so mine's going to be like a dice roll every time, no matter what level.
But if like I said, they lose that, the knights are right there and their bodies have weapons. So you
added that in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kelly?
Yeah, that wasn't in the core.
That's weird that it's not, right?
It's weird.
Okay, so for anyone listening and that hasn't read the books, that first battle that happens in the first book, the first battle with the Kender, the knight, Kelara showed up kind of like near the end of it too. That felt like, oh, we're all gonna, even if we win, we lose, because they turn you to stone, your weapons. What do you do when your sword is stuck in them and frantically pick up another one?
You don't know about strange elven magic yet?
You don't know about strange elven magic yet? It's weird that that's not already in there. So thank you for flavoring that and making it didn't feel nitpicky. It didn't feel like now roll. Oh, it's stuck. It felt very, wow, this isn't a normal fight. This is dangerous.
It's supposed to be a big deal. And what I also really would suggest, because the characters are going to be divided out, like one of them is going to be in the first one of them is going to be the second prelude, and maybe 2 or 3 of them are going to be the third one, I reset the hit points to full. It's supposed to be that they're all at half health. Nah, screw that. It's more dramatic if it's at full. They had a sidekick with them, so that buffer was there. And if they couldn't take the Draconians away, that is when you fold in characters who are traveling from other paths, because it's a great way to bring people together, and nothing makes friends like fighting weird enemies on the road and stumbling across each other by accident. It's a great intro thing that puts the party together, and then they meet up at the funeral and go, huh, I guess we're friends. We already bled for each other. It's a great way to do it. Strongly suggest it. And if the players are rolling really poorly, maybe have it mid-combat and say, well, they were a little bruised up, play a little
something
fast
else
and
that
loose.
you something else that you did with that I really liked is when Rizira's daggers were stuck in there and like a bit busted or whatnot, you allowed them to get it back, like whether it was from like the knights or like whatnot. You did, like, at least at the beginning, like replace them, so it didn't feel like you were penalizing anyone or putting them into like that rough of a situation at first. Now that we know, if we get into that kind of situation on our own, that's our own fault.
Yeah.
But I did like that you like gave the opportunity to get things back after that.
Thanks. I'm glad that worked.
There's a chance for them to break and a chance for somebody to use mend.
Exactly, right? And as you're going through this,
Sword.
I think that the way that we staged it in terms of order of preludes was the best way to do it for dramatic potential. You start with the gods because the gods are the purpose of the module. It is the reintroduction of the gods and how they are interfering with the world. Okay? So it's starting with the gods showing up and being like, shit, we need to help. Then you go to magic, because magic is the anchored form of mysticism that exists in this world. Then you go to the one that's right outside of Vogler. So geographically, you are moving. Well, you start with the gods. So kind of, I look at it as you're looking outside of the world. Then you zoom in to the Mage Tower. Then you zoom into Vogler. Okay. If that does not work for you, because I had a really hard time at the beginning of this, because Riz, Aurontiros, and Hazeal were all going to be traveling together, and I'm like, I really need Rizira to be with Godfrey for this fight to work. And I don't know what Rizira would do in the Mage Tower. There's just nothing that really feels right. Thankfully, Kenders get Wanderlust. I just had you walk off, and then you met up. It was great. But if that doesn't work for you, might I posit another potential intro? And that would be the road to Vogler. Have them travel with merchants, either just hitching a ride, very good for Kender, very good for any non-fighter classes, monks, anything like that would, I'm not saying the monks aren't fighter classes, I'm saying that a monk would hitch a ride on a wagon, that would want to get to Vogler for the funeral. Then they can either travel with merchants or they can meet up around a campfire, because safety in numbers, right? And at the campfire, have them tell stories about some of the rumors of things coming from the east. That's all it has to be. You can have the entire party meet up at this campsite or this roadside fire on the edge of Vogler, about a day away, and then just play it up. But this is the important part, the person that's telling the stories of the things to the east appear to be unreliable. The players know that anything you provide like this is just foreshadowing and you're just setting the mood. But for the characters, have it be the old coot telling the story. This can be like, I heard there's armies in the east who are coming here and they've got dragon men. Sure, old Tom. Yeah, I'm sure
the Knights wouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, the Knights wouldn't allow that to happen, right? So that is my strong suggestion there. Now, as for preludes, folks, was there anything about your prelude that you thought particularly worked, or something that you would have liked to have changed or that didn't work for you? Let's go in the same order. Christine, was there anything in yours in the Divine one?
I wouldn't say anything didn't work. I really enjoyed it. It felt really mystical, very dreamlike.
Okay. Is there anything that you would
what the hell was
suggest?
happening, which was really good. I knew it was something to do with the prelude and where I would get my powers, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. So, yeah, I don't know. I felt it was really, really a good kind of mystical introduction to being, oh, I went from normal to something else.
There. And that's a great way to look at it. Like, they're chosen. They're special.
And I loved at the end getting my attention drawn by Cudgel shouting, looking out, then turning to look back, and it's all be gone.
Yeah. What about Hazeal and Aurontiros? How about the arcane eye thing?
I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything that you would have changed about it? I mean, besides using your hammer instead?
That's the part I loved about it. That was, I mean, you improvising, because I did not have any of the very useful spells that it thought I might have.
Nice.
So-
I thought
Aurontiros.
thought it was interesting how like open it was. It was like, oh, are you gonna follow her through? Ooh, and how mystical the host was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how kind of just like easygoing it was. Like you get through and it's like, oh, technically we could have got through there without any magic.
Yeah.
But that's the idea, right? Like magic is an aid, not a crutch.
Yeah.
Not a necessity.
Mhm.
Right. So I ended up liking it and coming out of that being like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I should be a mage.
Maybe you should.
Yeah. And I liked that it was actually it was so open that, you know, Aurontiros could join Hazeal. And I also liked the little bit of one-on-one time we got, right?
Mhm.
Like just kind of developing that relationship we have, which, you know, I wouldn't have gotten if it had just been me going to that. There would have been less of that fun part.
And if your players are role players, I strongly suggest just doing the preludes at the table. It's more fun to see that and to get a sense of the world and to share that together. If your players are not really role players, they're more like dice role players, you can do it solo. You can have the mysticism thing, but I like to share it at the table if your players are down for it. And so finally for the preludes, for the Draconian fight, Riz, Godfrey, and I guess everybody, because you ended up showing up to that. Anything about that you want to comment on?
Well, I have to say, one of the concerns I was having when you first were talking about the preludes was I was like, because you phrased it as clerics and mages get their own thing, and then the rest of you normies have a thing. So it kind of in my head as going into it as a non-major cleric, I was like, well, that makes it feel like, oh, we're not special kind of thing, which we're not necessarily, because we're like in the world of Kryn, we're not special, but as like a D&D person, you always want to be special. You're playing a fantasy hero, you're kind of in the aspect of you're being special.
The chosen still need heroes to aid them in their quest.
So I think it did a really good job of it didn't feel like, oh, this is just like a side plot. It really did. It was a very good prelude for foreshadowing.
My touchstone for that was the very beginning of the first book with Tanis, Flint, and Tasselhoff.
Yeah, definitely had that.
So yeah.
So I thought it was very well good, and also scary as hell to do that fight at level 1. It was definitely like made you afraid of the Draconians. Like if you weren't already afraid.
I was so worried for you guys.
Godfrey took the first damage, he was like, how much? Because it was like 7 on the first attack, and he was like, oh, okay.
I was like, that's a lot of hit points there for a single character.
And once somebody turned to stone, I was kind of going,
I know.
Oh God, shit, that's like greater restoration. I don't get that for like 6 more levels.
It's just like,
oh crap.
Oh shit.
We're gonna have to hold on to that statue for a long time.
Right. Yeah, right. I really enjoyed that opening scene, that fight. I felt like it actually, like as like I felt like each of them set a tone going forward for the game, and I don't think it would have that one would have set as much of a tone as it wouldn't have done if you hadn't added in that classic kind of draconian thing. And I know not everyone enjoys all the hurt the mores and everything that I'm always like, give us more about, but I personally find like those sort of moments and stuff like that to be a lot of fun, like having those challenges and trying to overcome them. And I think it's more entertaining, and it's when you see like other characters succeed in ways that might not necessarily be expected against something that's a bit challenging, and I enjoyed it, and a lot of that was what you changed and added in.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. So
I must admit the petrification thing, with it not being petrification but just a layer of stone, I really like that you allowed us to have a save to notice that it seemed to be a cover and that we could potentially break it and thus rescue the person, or at least allow them to breathe and to figure out. Because that really kind of made it feel really desperate, but then, oh my God, okay.
Yeah, it's the tracheotomy, right? It's the oh no, the straw, you know. And ever since I saw Anaconda, that's always stuck in my mind. That like that's drama, that's excitement, and that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to rescue people. Sorry. All right, so folks, that is how I would suggest doing the preludes, and that is how hopefully some of that advice worked for you. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to come back and talk about chapter 3, which is quite long. We're going to try to get through it pretty quick, and then we'll do our Q&A. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Now let's move on to chapter 3. So folks, I'm going to try to blur through this and give my DM notes as quickly as possible. But if there's anything about chapter 3 that you want to interject, players, please let me know and just give me a symbol and we'll hop in. Okay. When Home Burns. So for those of you joining us right now, we are talking about chapter 3 of Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragonqueen, which means there will be some spoilers for chapter 3 and not really beyond that. Vogler, let's be honest. Your players should know that trouble is coming. If they saw that the title of the chapter is When Home Burns, it should be obvious. If they've ever seen a movie, it should be obvious. Okay? Your goal is not to hide this fact from them, but to use it to foreshadow what is to come and to allow them to be deluded into pretending or thinking that it might not. Okay? Your goal should be to anchor them in Vogler, and to make them feel like it's the nicest place in the world and the place that they would really like to be the most. I find personally, as a storyteller, the key to this is in small details. It's in specific names of objects, it's specific items, specific people, specific ways of doing things. NPCs should have endearing tics and opinions. Give them contrasting information. Give them contrasting opinions and personality traits. It's a great way to do it. For example, there's not much said about the guy that runs the fishbowl. Uncle is just a dude. I decided to play him as a grumpy asshole who secretly is a really sweet guy, but is an asshole on the surface. He's a grumpy uncle, right? So, and y'all who watched that episode went in going, wow, this guy's a dick. And then within 5 minutes, y'all liked him a lot because he secretly was like just grumpy dad. He's basically just Hopper from Stranger Things. Okay.
Oh, but you like the detail of you adding the person that makes like skeleton fishbone hanging ornaments. I'm like, I want it. It's a great little detail. And
that's actually in the module.
I want it. Is it? Oh, that's great.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Nice. They do a fantastic job of providing that, but that doesn't mean that you can't provide a little more. So like give NPCs endearing tics and opinions and try to flesh out the environment there. There's a lot to do with with everything in Vogler in general. For example, I would flesh out the environment a little more. The hinterlands, and this part it has never really been explored in Dragonlance books that I know of at this point. So make it your own. It's called the hinterlands, which means that it's kind of a northern area. I assume it kind of feels like Northern Europe, maybe Scandinavia, Sweden, that kind of thing. So I drew on a lot of IKEA. for this. I thought about the IKEA food court. I had Swedish meatballs. I had what did I have? I looked up alcoholic beverages and types of food and drink that are common in Scandinavia, particularly Sweden, because I pictured like beautiful fjords and valleys and all of that. So like aquavit, glögg, pilsners and meads would be the most common over ale. Filmjölk, which is like a yogurt drink. That means there are cows nearby in the pastures outside. Even though this is a fishing town, there are cows down the road. Okay, cow from down the street. Lingonberry, and all sorts of apple. That's going to flavor your setting. If people are like, I'd like an ale, and you're like, well, we have a pilsner. The ale's kind of old because we don't get it that often. It's more of a dwarvish thing. And if your dwarf's like, oh, it's not a real dwarf drink, and you're like, well, have you ever had aquavit? What's that? And aquavit, for those who don't know, is kind of like what, Scandinavian Everclear. Like it's pretty potent, and even a dwarf would probably have a little bit of their beard hair curl drinking that. It's a good way for you to introduce the culture of the local area and to make it a little endearing and memorable, and not just the y'all meet in a tavern, y'all have an ale, y'all go fight a goblin, right? It allows you to break out of that. I would also suggest to make everybody in town a pretty good-natured person. Dragonlance has a lot of prejudice built into it. People are afraid of magic users. They don't particularly like elves. Dwarves are okay, but only if they kind of work for you, because they live forever, but also are really good smiths, so you kind of tolerate them, right? This is a town where everybody's supposed to like you. Well, with two exceptions. Everybody likes you, so play off those prejudices. Like, ignore them. If someone's going to be prejudiced, have it be from a place of ignorance or just curiosity, rather than actively being a jerk. Chris.
Oh, I was just going to say something that I thought was really well done with it, and that I think people should play up is, like you were saying, the two exceptions. Those two noblemen are the ones that like immediately come to mind, and I loved the contrast between like almost everyone else in the town had some sort of like really endearing quality, and then you put those people in there, and even just like ripping at Ispin's funeral and whatnot, it provided so much more contrast, which I think for me made it like, I want to defend these people, defend his honor, defend that. And like, just kind of, I felt like that was just a really well done thing, and something you can use to like, as a foil for how nice and endearing everyone else was. And if you're looking to run this, please use please utilize those tools.
You also bring up a great point in that it sets up an immediate contrast that your players will unconsciously lean into. And not only the contrast that Chris just mentioned, but what you look at it is Barcarus, Barcarus, the elder and younger, are outsiders. They are people who are not from Vogler. You, as players, are likely mostly not from Vogler. Which means that as you're in town and you're seeing these assholes act a certain way, you intrinsically want to act nicer so as not to be the bad outsider. It takes pressure off of you. So it's a double whammy that way. It's a good psychological trick to use them. I've got a lot about them. Use them as needed. They are very strong elements. Have them not do something that is particularly gross or awful. Unless you want player reprisal, because remember, player reprisal in D&D goes to 11 pretty quick at most tables. So I've got a lot in the future of this chat about how not to get them murdered immediately. But when you are going through this, play up the good-naturedness of people, okay? Also, you can use things about the town like the bridge, which was half complete when the cataclysm occurred, to show how far society has fallen. The bridge has not been completed because the technology has been lost. It was made of stuff that we can't make anymore. So you can do that to kind of show a hint of what was in the past, what this place used to be. Okay, let's move on to the NPCs. The NPC cast of Vogler is really big. There are a lot of NPCs there, and that is going to be a lot to freak out your average brand new DM. Here's my suggestions for you. Make a list, make a Google sheet, make an Excel sheet, whatever you use, put them on index cards if you have to. For Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, Krista, our DM over there, religiously uses post-it notes and index cards that is that have everything from character stats to details to vocal mannerisms and tics, so that at any point, if a character shows up, if Becklin walks into a scene, I pick up the card and I go, even if it's just point form, Becklin, knight, nice person, talks British. Think you're Judi Dench when you're talking, right? Or Helen Mirren, I forget which one I said, but I think it was Helen Mirren. I think I was going to Helen Mirren with her, but
I think it's Helen Mirren.
I think it's always Helen Mirren because she was in
But
Fast
still,
and Furious.
nice.
Right? So you got a shorthand right in front of you. If you're playing in front of a screen, it's great. Otherwise, you can use it if you're using a Windows machine to play over the internet. There's tons of different things. You could just use your notepad, for God's sake, and do it like that. You could put Post-its on your desktop. There's so many ways to do it. If your table does not like role-playing, this is another big one. A lot of people are not as theatrical as we are. So if your table does not like role-playing, have any character that is not Becklin, Cudgel, Darrett, or the jerks, Barkaris, show up at the festival instead of having them meet in the street or anything like that. You can introduce them through dice rolls instead. For example, you're at a fishing contest. The guy who gets second place offers to buy you a drink. That is NPC X. That could be Uncle from the pub. That could be the Brass Crabs owner, whose name escapes me at the moment, like Yvonne or something like that. You can do it in a way that immediately endears them because the players are getting something free out of it, like food or drink, and usually players will assume that someone buying you a drink is a little nicer than not. And you can introduce them through a way that makes the players feel like they won something because they just won a dice roll against this NPC. Take time to flesh out the village. But yeah, take short lists, make sure to have ways to cross-reference pretty quickly. I often have cross-reference sheets for larger cast games. I should have done it for Call of the Netherdeep, but I didn't, where I have accents. I'm like, just point form. He is Sean Connery. He is Hugh Grant. He is Daniel Craig in Knives Out. Like, boom, 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 boom. It might not be the exact voice, but if I look at that, I'm like, oh yes, Barkaris should actually sound Southern because that's the type of table I'm running. So have fun with that. Keep your notes, make them easily accessible for you, and use whatever system works for you. But just do the extra bit of work. It will really help you. Okay, the funeral. The whole point of them going to Vogler is going to this funeral. First thing that I think you should do, and this is a minor thing, not every table should agree with this, but check in with your players. The funeral is going to have an interactive component to it, and not all players might want to interact at a funeral. There's a lot of stuff that you might know about people at your table, even if they're your close friends. Okay? Funerals may be a hot button issue, so be sure to let them know that they're going to be going to a funeral. It probably will be okay, but there's a chance there might be something going on in their lives. I think that a lot of people don't talk about death and how it affects them. So maybe you just float it by. Funerals are also a lot more impactful than like murder and combat in D&D. Those happen all the time. Funerals, you never have a funeral for the bandit. Jen.
This just struck a memory in me. Isn't the second edition of Werewolf the Forsaken suggests you start with a funeral to like make connections with people? Yeah.
Yep, it does, and it's great. If you ever play Werewolf the Forsaken, in the back of the book, the suggested prelude for your characters is you all meet at a funeral and you go on a hunt to kill the people that killed the friend at the end of the game, and it's a good way to do it. Then you get the catharsis. In this, he just died. They don't even tell you how he died. Maybe
being awesome, obviously.
Yeah, he died of just like his heart grew 3 sizes and then exploded from being awesome. I would say if you want to have an actual concrete thing, don't double check with all the players and be like, hey, anybody have a problem if it was like a heart attack or something? Because maybe a player is dealing with high blood pressure and is worried about having a heart attack. A lot of gamers are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Maybe someone's dad just died. Just check in. It takes 5 minutes, and your friends might.
The most un-Ispin thing ever. He died peacefully in his sleep. Nothing was
right.
Nothing was out of the norm. It's like,
I
what?
mean,
No,
that's
that can't.
the
That,
adventurer's
there's something
dream.
wrong
That must
there.
be something wrong. He's been
That's
murdered.
Let me see the body.
Poison.
Isn't it weird that there's no body?
Yeah.
Hey, there is no body. It's not. Ispen is actually Cudgel. He just lost some inches, in more ways than one. Actually, now that I think about it. All right. So what also during the funeral, there is a storytelling component where the characters get to tell a backstory component from their time with Ispen. Let them know this before the game. Let them roll it before the game so they know their seed and can start thinking about it. Now, you might be saying, well, this will ruin the surprise. So what? It doesn't matter. The other players don't have to know what they rolled. Don't have them roll the same thing, or if they do, sure, maybe they have the exact same seed and vastly different stories. And it's
Which would be
weird and
perfect.
funny, right? But if you do this, let them know, because the only thing you're going to spoil if you tell them in advance is spoiling them feeling like they got put on stage with no prep. Because a lot of people don't like having to just improv on the spot. I mean, I love it, but like,
Panic.
well, exactly. I know that a couple of you, when I sent you that stuff, I sent it to you way early because you're
I still
like,
panicked.
and you still came up with something good, and it changed his entire backstory. Also, don't define much of Ispen's personality before the funeral. Let the stories describe who he was as a person. You know, he was an adventurer. You know, he was lucky. You know, he went on a bunch of exploits and told tall tales. But we don't necessarily know what he's like until the players tell you. Let them have that agency. They'll like Ispen a lot more. Okay?
Well, and I think when you gave him his accent, that really also helped concrete for us as well. When we suddenly all decided, like, oh, yes, he is the Sean Connery. Okay, I know exactly this guy's personality now. We all, like, simultaneously agreed of what kind of guy Ispen was versus, like, the
100%.
proper British kind of accent.
Well, because I was going to go with Pierce Brosnan. I was going to, oh, yes, they'll print anything these days, right? And y'all
Sounds
vetoed
so
it. You're
wrong.
like wrong Bond, wrong Bond. And let your players choose. If you do voices, let your players choose. Let your players choose who this person is, because to you he is a device. To them he is a touchstone. It's more important that they have say in it. It doesn't affect the story at all. It's a magic trick. They think that they have much more agency than they do. And for you, you're basically giving them the option of like what shoes to wear today. It doesn't matter.
I
We're
feel
still going to the zoo.
bamboozled.
You do
Yeah,
feel
right?
bamboozled, right?
I'm bamboozled. Actually, like the funeral on this was totally improv, was the whole map thing for Riz. I'm like, well, I just gave Riz like so much more depth and personality than I ever thought with that moment with Ispen. And now
The-
it's like, well,
One of the
That's
tricks
something.
as well, just a quick reminder, when you're playing tabletop games, always use yes and or yes but, and try never to shut anybody down. And just because you're saying yes doesn't mean that something is actually correct. If Riz told the story, I could be like, yeah, you're pretty sure that happened from a certain point of view, right? But don't shut the player down, because it's really easy to say, well, maybe you misinterpreted something in the moment, but that's irrelevant. That's just going to derail you. You know, let's run it. And you didn't misinterpret anything, Robin. I just picked you because you were the last one to speak. So in our game, we used flashbacks. As these stories happened, we went and had a flashback, and I used the idea of Ispen's ghost. He's not really his ghost. He doesn't have a ghost as far as I can tell in the module, but it's a psychological construct to inform both the audience and the players what he was like as a person. This is an advanced storytelling technique. Wouldn't recommend it for all tables, but if you think you can use it, maybe try it. See how we did it. See if you can adapt that. It does allow the players to interact with a dead person after they're gone in a way that's not creepy, and gives them something that they can feel something about. It gives them a false memory. And that's really powerful in role-playing games. Okay? Okay, next, the heckler. Bakara shows up and starts saying that Ispen was a piece of shit. It is really hard not to kill him right then. If your players want to. I have two suggestions. Number one, inform them that that's not what Ispen would have wanted. And remind them how many people are nearby. Also, out of character, remind them that Bakaris is a vain noble. And if you break his nose and bloody him up a bit, it is way more impactful for him in the long run than if you kill him. because he's going to have to walk around looking beat up for a week or hide in his house. Okay? Try to move your players
I humiliated him.
You humiliated him, which is fine. That's even better because his pride is more valuable to him than his life. This is one of the things that I always try to encourage players to do. Don't just kill people. Killing is easy. There's way more painful things you can do to these people, right? Press triangle for an all-out attack. You're absolutely right, Robin. No murder hobo simulator. Okay, so the mysterious mourner, Lidara. I got to be really careful right now because she factors in later in the story, but she is a rough one. She's a blue-skinned elf with a mysterious background. It's hard to run her without immediately putting a spotlight on her and being like, hey, go talk to the shadowy Aragorn figure in the corner, to your players, because the players are going to immediately either glom onto her or avoid her at all cost. It's just the way the players work. She has to be just interesting enough that they go talk to her, but not too interesting, because she can't give away what her deal is, because that comes out later in the module. That is the only spoiler you guys are getting from me. She shows up later. Okay?
Yeah, I kind of figured it was a little bit almost feeling like it was definitely like you mentioned her a couple times, then like the third time you mentioned her, it's like, okay, yeah, we do need to go talk to the shadowy Aragorn figure in the corner here.
There's only room for one elf in this tavern.
Well, and there's the other thing about that. She's a blue-skinned elf. That's not really a thing in Dragonlance for the most part. Unless like maybe the sea elves, I can't remember off the top of my head, but like a blue-skinned elf.
Yeah, but they don't really go on land.
Who knows what elves look like anyway?
And that's what I'm saying. Be mysterious. If it's a non-elven player or character who's going in there and being like, "Whoa, it's a blue elf. What's weird about that?" Be like, "You don't know. You've never come across that before."
See,
weird. Was that Jen? No,
I was just gonna say. See, my brain goes, oh, well, maybe she's just really into natural dyes and accidentally fell into a vat of indigo.
Or she's been supplementing with silver.
Or that.
Because that'll actually turn you blue, by the way. Don't use silver compounds in your diet. There was a health craze for a while in the 1800s and 1900s. Oh, actually, no, recently too. Actually, it's back because of holistic medicine. Don't do it. You'll turn blue, and it doesn't go away.
Nope.
For a long time.
Sawbones.
Today I learned.
Papa Smurf.
But so play mysterious. You've never seen anything like that before. If you have a Kender, maybe just be like, maybe she's holding her breath. Let the Kender say something really inappropriate. That's fun. And if an elf player asks, just be like, I don't know, maybe she's from a nation outside your nation. Customs are wildly different. Maybe she just dyed herself in blueberry juice. But hand wave that. So, the shield. After the funeral, the shield is awesome. That's all I got to say. If you really want some touchstones on how to present the shield, go watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier and just rip it off wholeheartedly. Everything with Steve Rogers and Captain America's shield, just rip it off. It's great. How to stop them from... Sorry.
For the shield, how would you deal with a situation if there were a couple of players who really wanted the shield? Like, how would you resolve that?
I mean, I think the players have to resolve that, right? I think ideally it should go to a Solemnic character first before anybody else, or it should go to a knight first, or someone who will actually use it primarily. But I think that's something the players would have to handle for themselves. But if anybody has any suggestions, I'd love to hear it, because that's a rough one. The magic item.
I love
the magic
the
item
comments in the chat from Falconer, duel to the death.
Yeah, that's not productive, but I'm down.
Yeah, I'd probably like if they were starting to really fight over it, you can pull the pub scene again, the tavern scene of, it's not what Ispin would want. Like, talk this out.
Although maybe
Take
a duel.
the shield, rip it in half, and give equal halves to both.
There
See which one is the true mother.
And then
That's
you round down, so that 0.5 of a plus.
So everyone gets +1 to their AC.
No, see, if it was +1, then it's now plus 0.5 because you tear it in half, and then now it's 0 because you round down.
Oh, that's fair.
Math.
That's good. Good job, math.
So, okay, so that's the shield's awesome. Like, have them do that. You could have them duel for it. You could have them have an arm wrestling contest. Anything that you think would be like, it could be you could have them do whoever has the best poetry of the people who want it, right? Because it's Ispin, it can be anything. You know, the first person to seduce a fair maiden or lad at the pub gets the shield. Who knows, right? Have fun with it. How to stop them from killing Baccharis? I don't know, man. Remind them that killing is wrong. And that people go to jail for that in these games. It's real hard.
I think with this game, it's so far it's seemed to have a somewhat heroic, classic heroic bent to it. And I know some other games, you know, you can kind of get away a little bit more with everyone being either morally gray or a little bit like. There, but I think in this game, like it's you should definitely like come into the game if you've got people who want to play more edgy kind of characters, I guess, for lack of a better word. Sorry, I'm not very fluent there, but I mean, you can always have neutral characters and like nuanced characters, but it ultimately, like, this does seem like a very heroic campaign.
Yeah, it feels
important
old
to keep
school.
in mind when designing your characters.
It's very old school, with knights like being a very common thing. Oh my god, I can't think of the word right now. But yes, it's a very prolific. Nope, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Prolific, yeah. There is that sense of like duty in what is right. So yeah, having
high fantasy, not murder hobo. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Silverglass 83 in the chat actually just brought up a good idea. So one of the DMs in the I actually know there was a Discord group for this. Link me and I'll join that and then spam it with all my stuff. Broke the shield apart and made it an amulet for each of the players. You could totally have it reforged into that. It grants a total of a +3 armor bonus when equipped. So 3 players could get a +1 to their armor from it. That sounds fair to me. Or you can use it once a day for a reroll.
That's a fantastic idea.
That's a really good idea.
And just for sentimental value too. Like that's awesome.
Each of them take a little piece of Ispin. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Great.
This is why we crowdsource this stuff. It's great. Okay. So some quick point form here. Major NPCs and how to make them likable. Feel free to jump in if you have any other opinions on how we did it. Becklin. Make her polite, friendly, and reactive rather than active. Have her ask questions and have her listen to the answer before she responds. Have her be a good host and have her be inquisitive. Her whole thing is that she's a retired knight who's basically an archaeologist and kind of like a caretaker, right? Use Thornwall Keep to show off her personality. It's neat, tidy, and inquisitive because of all of the trenches that she's dug around looking for old artifacts. Nice, easy way to describe her. She's a source of stability, but she's still got a little bit of like that kind of cute, inquisitive nature about her. Okay? Cudgel. Cudgel is the opposite. Make her brash, make her abrasive, but amusingly and smirkingly salty. She asks questions, but then she talks over the answer. This is who she is as a person. But she's also friendly, and if she talks over you too much, she'll buy you around because she realizes that she might be talking too much. It's not going to stop her, but she'll be friendly. Okay?
Oof, I feel personally
attacked. Yeah, give her ADHD like us, and then we're done. Darret. Darret is one of the harder ones here because the module wants you to have Darret accompany you for later chapters. But the module literally says, do whatever you need to make your players like Darret. That will depend on your table. My suggestions is to make him competent, but naive. He should be the guy that that the PCs know has their back and supports them in their efforts. He doesn't take the spotlight, but he helps them achieve their spotlights. Use him to offer advice and ideas, but maybe make him half wrong. Where he's like,
Keanu Reeves helped too.
Keanu Reeves helped, where he's just kind of just like, whoa,
but young Keanu.
Young Keanu, where he's well-intentioned, but he's only seeing like a portion of the picture. The beautiful thing about doing that is that if you use him to suggest half of the solution, the characters will be like, that's an okay idea, but here's a better one. and then they take your idea and they make it better, which is actually what you were trying to get them to do in the first place. But now they feel like they accomplished the goal because they completed your sandwich or sentence or whatever. Okay, so a lot of being a dungeon master is magic tricks and lying to your friends. This is a nice easy one where you can prompt them. You can basically prime them with an idea through Dara, where the players will feel like he's not dumb, he's just young and inexperienced, but they're a step ahead of him because they're real adventurers. Makes them feel cool, makes them like him, because hey, when people like you, you like them. That's psychologically proven usually. I mean, sometimes not, but if people make you feel cool, you'll like them more. Also, be aware that Darren has a lot of hit points. In the first battle, he has 4 times as many hit points as the players, 3 times as many, quite a bit. He's got 52 hit points. That is a lot.
Baby boy.
Yeah, because he just uses the stats for a knight. So remember, he is the ideal character to go, I've got this. Go and take care of the important thing. If you need somebody to hold off some dudes from a random encounter while the players go and fight the ogre, that's what he's there for. He is there to be the shield. Ironically, the players have the shield. He is the shield. I also had a question about other Kingfisher Festival ways to flesh it out. Dare is a meat shield. You're absolutely right. The Kingfisher Festival. A lot of people were asking, hey, how do we make the Kingfisher Festival better? Because all they have is a fishing contest. Here are some options you could throw in. A pie eating contest, a drinking contest, a blind taste testing of pies or ales, archery contest, wrestling contest, boxing, kissing booths, dunk booths, which if you're not aware of those or you're outside of the US where they're very prevalent, basically it's a platform you sit on and people throw balls at a target, and if it goes down, it dumps them in the water. The gnome could have invented it. It's not hard. Kissing booths, feats of strength, a limbo contest, tightrope walking or jugglers, a singing or dancing contest, a rap battle, also known in the Nordic countries as a flitting, where you rap battle, insult each other in rhyme. If you have particularly performative players or theater kids, this is a great way to incorporate them. Okay. Carnival games, darts. You can throw darts at balloons made out of pig bladders. You can do ring toss. You can do something like that. Animal wrangling. Maybe you have to wrestle pigs. Maybe you have to catch chickens. Okay. You can do a foot race. The basic thing that I would suggest for this, set a DC for this around 14 to 16, depending on what event it is. If it's a particularly challenging thing, make it 16. If it's a pretty easy, 13, 14. And then, have it be that there's like 1 to 3 rounds of it. If the player succeeds on all 3 rounds, they win 1 to 10 steel coins or something of equivalent value. Do your best to make it fun. Feel free to give your players trinkets and junk from it. Everybody loves, in Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos, that you get plush stuffed animals as prizes. They do have a magical effect in that game, but that's not why we like them. We like them because we want a stuffed animal, because we're really simple people and we're collecting we're goblins, right? We collect stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Use the trinket table if needed. Okay. But your point is just to make it feel fun and like you're at the carnival. If you've never been to a carnival, go on YouTube and look up what a carnival's like, or watch any movie made in the 80s. There's usually a carnival in like every 3rd one of those. Okay. Or a festival or a fair. So many things. Or watch Stranger Things season 2, 3, the one with the mall.
Yeah. Any sort of like coming of age movie from the 80s has some sort of carnival or festival in it.
It's true, right? Look up a Ren Fair. Like steal stuff from a Renaissance fair. Just be like, but they're not in costume. That's just their actual clothes. Yeah. Which actually, Jen, you wear that costume so much, it basically is your actual clothes. So that's fun. Kender at the festival. Here's one you should watch for. Feel free to have Kenders cause some drama at the festival, if it suits your table. Maybe they borrow things from one person's pocket and put them back in someone else's pocket. An item from NPC A ends up in PC B's pocket. Okay? Just remember that if they get caught, there are Kender living in this town. They're probably not treated with too much hostility. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, the raccoons are in the bird feeder again. Okay, hold on. I don't want to hurt the raccoon because I like the raccoons because they're cute.
Spray bottle, just psst.
Spray bottle. Yeah, you spray bottle the Kender and move on, right? Okay, so that's what I have to say about the festival. Let's move on to the battle at Highvalor. Okay, so as we're going into High Hill, encourage an atmosphere of camaraderie, of sportsmanship. Make sure that they know that they're getting watered down wine to go in, enough that they can get a little buzzed on it, that there's going to be food at the end of this and they should work it up. Maybe even encourage and say that there's a trophy if someone manages to do the best job of playing their role. You know, the person who the team that survives gets an extra portion of dessert or something like that. Make it sound fun and kind of, the players probably know something weird's going to happen, but try to obfuscate it a bit. Try to hide it under your shirt a bit. Remind yourself of the rules for riding mounts, because the first enemies they'll encounter in here are on horseback. Horseback is pretty basic in the book, but it means that the horses don't get any attacks unless they're on their own. Reread them real quick. Just make sure you're on top of horseback, because otherwise it'll blindside you, because you won't realize till you're midway through that, oh crap, there are horses. I hadn't thought about mounted combat. Allow terrain advantages and encounters. Remember that there's a big wall running through it. There's trees, there's hills. If players want to do things like climb a tree and jump down on someone, give them advantage. If they succeed an acrobatics check, sure, why not? It doesn't matter. We're here for, in my opinion, spectacle over hardcore rules. If someone wants to hide behind the wall, let them do it. If someone wants to throw rocks to use the help action, let them do it. It mechanically makes sense to me, and if your table's fine with it, do it. It also makes it more cinematic, and making something feel cooler is kind of the point of D&D a lot of the time, in my opinion. Reminder, if someone uses magic, regular arcane magic or divine magic, it is a big damn deal. Okay? People should flinch away from arcane magic, and they should stare in awe at divine healing. Okay, if someone heals in battle like Kelara did, that is going to cause rumors and talk behind her back for the remainder of the campaign. Possibly good stuff, but, you know, a lot of, did you see that? Oh my God. Right? Also, quick reminder, if someone's throwing magic, there is a good chance that the mercenaries might run. There are probably a couple of mages in the mercenary group, in the iron, I forget their name, but they're, because I've been talking a lot, but so the mercenaries might have a mage among them, but they probably haven't had it pointed at them. I would give them a DC 15 wisdom or charisma saving throw to not run away after that if it's pointed at them, because they're being bribed to kill people. They're not being bribed to die. They can't spend their money if they're dead. They're mercenaries. Okay? Reminder, people run away from death. Very few things will fight to the death. All right, so that's what I have to say there. After the fight, Cudgel in the aftermath is a rough one. She should be distraught, but I would suggest leaning into anger, but also other emotions like sadness, fear, shock. That'll make it more impactful. If this like very boisterous dwarf is suddenly like really just kind of like shocked to her core. The book also, I said there are a couple of places in the book where they're very emphatic about you doing a very specific course of action that doesn't matter. Okay. And this is one of them. The book is very specific about how Cudgel is going back to the camp by herself afterwards to check on the rest of her mercenaries. I looked through this and I could only find two reasons why this was the case. One, perhaps it was to raise tension and to make your players worry whether or not she is a spy or is about to be murdered. Cool. That's a good reason. It raises tension. It makes people worried. My second thought is the writers didn't want to write an extra section about going to the camp. I think it's a mix, to be honest, because I wouldn't have wanted to write that. It's extraneous and it would have added another 500 words to the book. That's about a 2-hour writing gig, maybe 3 hours to polish it. Yeah, that could be spent much better doing something else. So don't stress too much. If they go back to the camp, then it says kind of what happens to her there. Just wing it. They go back. It's like, hey, what's going on here? Oh, yeah, some of them left, and it was really weird, but the rest of us stayed here, and we're all loyal. There you go.
I would definitely prepare for your party wanting to do that. Have a backup plan for that, because I think that there were a couple of times, or at least some of us, who were probably going to try and sneak over there or like head over there anyway. So
you wanted to, and if I
try and have some prep.
If I
for
seemed
that.
discombobulated in that moment, it's because Christine was getting sick, and I was like worried about her, and I'm like, guys,
I was very loudly throwing up in the bathroom. I was very unhappy and could barely breathe because I was
Yeah.
throwing up so much.
And the mic wasn't picking it up, but the walls aren't that thick here, so I was.
It was loud enough that my brother in the downstairs of the house could hear me and came up to check because he thought it sounded like I was dying.
Yeah. She didn't die though,
So-
but did you die?
I didn't. I was just miserable.
Did
All
you
right.
die?
But yeah, it's kind of why I started leaning on the dwarven honor thing, because I'm like, guys, we just gotta we gotta do the thing.
Even
I must admit,
veterans.
I was listening to
sometimes-
you guys on my phone on Twitch all through feeling miserably sick. It was a great distraction. And I was admittedly kind of going, for fuck's sake, guys, Kelly clearly doesn't want you to go there. Shut the fuck up and keep moving.
even
Stop
veteran
hiding.
Everybody does the thing where they're like, okay, we've gotten 17 hints from the DM that we shouldn't do this. It's gonna need another the 18th or 19th one. Okay, we understand. Well,
Are
you're
you
on
sure?
your own.
Are you sure? Really? Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think one of the things with something that's a little bit more performative, after you like make these ideas and just kind of like, oh, okay, we should do this. And it's just like, oh, okay, maybe this is not a good idea for this. How am I going, like, trying to rationalize how I'm not going to do it now? And I stumble with that myself quite a bit sometimes when it's just like, oh, this might not be a good idea. Shit.
All right, so that's what I have to suggest for that. Let's pop into preparing for the invasion, and then we'll take some Q&A. So the invasion. My suggestions: don't let the PCs get too close to the Red Dragon army because they'll die. The book encourages this and basically says that when you get close to the Red Dragon army, some scouts will find you, they'll fight you. If you kill them and you get any closer, another wave will come, and it's basically an infinite loop of respawning enemies because there are like 1,000 guys there, okay? And the module doesn't want you to die in the 3rd game session. They want you to die in the 12th game session. When they get back to the town and they're like, hey, we need to leave, remind people that PCs, remind the PCs that people can't just leave their homes. And they won't leave their homes without evidence. There are also a lot of sick and injured people. Make it a conflict there, okay? Also remind them that people are stupid and won't believe obvious evidence until it's literally pointing a sword at their face. I would also remind you that, I'd like to suggest at least, that suggesting things to your players is not a bad thing. A lot of games and a lot of game masters take exception with you providing suggestions to your players because the player should come up with all of the genius strategies themselves. The player does not have the same knowledge the character does. Period. And if you have someone who's living in Vogler, it's pretty basic that you would be like, there are about 200 people worth of boats here. The book says you need to spend at least an hour going and counting boats and looking around for ways to get out of here. That's a really boring way to do it, particularly on a live stream, but at a table, that is something that you can do, but it also would just be something that you probably hand wave. You go around and look around for an hour and count this. So why not just have them figure it out? They've been in town for a day or so, and some of them are from here. At least in our case, that was true. So, and feel free to scaffold ideas to them, like build them up to things. Be like, well, you need to get 400 people out of here, and there are potentially some other options. You remember that there were boats. There's that ferry system, maybe, and then you let the player do some rolls to figure that out. Provide some basic info, especially if the player would have that knowledge. That is not a failing. That is just helping the game exist and providing the character with the information that they would have. Also, another thing that I've heard is also ignore the time limit. There's a lot of stuff in these modules, like in Call of the Netherdeep especially, where it's like, you must spend at least 10 minutes looking around to find the secret door. Like, do you really? Do you really? Like, what are you blowing sand into the cracks or something?
How does that further the game? Like
what it is
like
there's
the scene from Fifth Element where they spend a grueling amount of time figuring out that they need to use the element on the stones. It's like that. Pad out the movie.
You got to pad out the runtime, because you're getting, as a DM, you're getting paid by the minute, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
100%.
100%. Oh yeah. I don't even get paid by the minute, and I run this professionally. This is ridiculous.
I mean, the per minute amount is not a lot, but
like the longer I run, the less I get paid. So just speed it up. But no, seriously. The other thing is that I've heard a lot of people say, well, Vogler's a really stupid place to have a town. It's totally not realistic that it would be built there. Okay, here's the deal. Towns are built for water supply before military strategy. Period. Because you can survive a lot longer with a conquering like band of brigands nearby than you can without water. The town's there because it's in a really good place and has a good harbor. The fact that it has hills that slope down and is basically indefensible against a large army probably didn't cross their minds. They probably didn't think that anything more than a band of about 100 people, probably 50, probably 20, would ever try to raid the town when it was being built. And the other thing to consider, if this is something that really, really rankles you, when you think, well, why would the town be there at the bottom of like a hill toward the water? For one, land goes into water generally, or land comes up from water, I guess I should rather say, but water is the downside. It's the lower part. But also maybe the topography changed during the Cataclysm, because Thornwall was there before the Cataclysm. Maybe it was far more defensible before, you know, a mountain got dropped on Krynn. Just saying.
Earthquakes happen, like Hazeal
Rocks
happens
fall.
and does earth tremor and causes a bunch of collapse.
Happened,
Like,
right?
I've messed with the topography of that city. I'm
Just
sure.
the entire game. So
Yep.
think about that when you're doing it. Don't get hung up on minutia. Okay. Is it more important that the game runs and is fun, or that you have a perfect military strategy? I don't know. It's your game, man. In the
Some people
invasion,
do like that.
some people do like that. That's what I said. It's your game. I'm not going to shame you for liking that. But at
If
my
you want
table,
to play Risk.
oh,
But,
dude, Dragonlance Risk would be great.
right?
Someone make that. Make
I'd
that.
play that.
Maybe
I'd
maybe
play
that's
that.
the board game that we're not playing.
We'll
I
just
was
make.
just gonna say that's probably the
Is it just the
board game.
It's open up. It's literally just Risk. I'm going to stay in Solace and build up and build up and build up, like Australia.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
so
That's
the
strat.
invasion itself. Okay, for one, when it's coming in, I personally think it's more interesting to humanize the rider, like the messenger who comes and is like, surrender to the army, because then it's, if you're like, oh yes, it's a slathering horde of monsters headed your way, that's scary, I guess. You know what's more scary? The Empire from Star Wars. When you have this machine of like thinking, feeling people. Jen?
Regular people with fewer morals than you.
Yeah.
Or just different ones.
And if you have some players who might be black-robed mages or evil characters, that could be, they could sell out the town and then get caught in the middle of it and betrayed, and they still have to go along with the main plot. Right? Easy way to do that. Okay. I kind of made her a little like, I kind of borrowed some of like Kitara's vibe, where she's kind of like a real mercenary, real like kind of sassy type of girl. But do whatever you want. Also, have her ride away so that she's not there during the gnome flinger thing, because that just really complicates things. Also, use the gnome flinger. It's dumb.
There was no way we couldn't not.
There's no way you can, right?
Very true. I'm so glad we did. I mean, I know Hazeal had her doubts, but that was just role playing. I wanted it so much.
Right. So the problem with war is in general that when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to focus on details as a DM. You're trying to run a bunch of really complex things, a bunch of different combat encounters, and so on. So when you're running the invasion, what I strongly suggest is that you make a note, and I wish I had done this. This is something that I look back on that scene, and I was trying to do a bunch of stuff. I was trying to get us done because Robin apparently had COVID and was looking really rough, and I was trying to make sure that we all had fun, but the game didn't go super late, and still did because it was a hell of a game. Pick an initiative count, 5, maybe 10, and have a short list of things that you've created on your sheet where there is a random snapshot that you can put in there of a baby crying, or someone running and falling underneath a trampling horse. Maybe the players can try to interject, or maybe it's too far away and they're just seeing people in the middle of war. Don't go too in detail. The vaguer you are, the more memorable it might be. Okay? There is a temptation to get super graphic and you're like, oh, you see their guts explode. And no, don't do that. Have someone scream as a building falls on them and then they just are gone. Have it be a named NPC that one of the people that was at the festival. Have it be someone that bought you a beer. They're running and then suddenly they're just gone. You never see them again. The body never shows up in the game again. That will haunt the players and it won't be super graphic. It's a little more meaningful if you do it that way. That's what I would suggest. I wish I would have done that. Other things I would suggest, tweak the random encounters. They have too many draconians in the random encounters for the invasion. In my opinion, I know there are a lot of draconians. There are a lot more human-shaped things. They're cheaper. The army wouldn't waste those. Just throw humans into the fray. There are already draconians flying over, dropping alchemist fire and everything. That's plenty. Have them be air support. But don't overdo it. Draconians should be cool. They should be interesting, and they shouldn't happen constantly because they lose their specialness.
And
that's what I think, at least.
Like, and I know, like, it's a DM trick that a lot of people do anyway, but pick and throw in your own. Like, it's just like, hey, this would be really interesting to have this one happen right now, or complicate things to have this one happen right now.
The cat one, I picked the cat one because that's a random one that an abandoned cat jumps on you and refuses to leave.
It's not abandoned anymore.
It's not abandoned. Now Riz owns it. I had considered actually having, as you were going away, you end up on the boat where the cat's family was and reuniting, but I don't think the person survived. I think that's your cat now. So tweak the random encounters. Okay. Also at the very end of it, Viewmaster Gukag, or whatever her name is, she sucks. Just let him kill her. She's not really an interesting antagonist. The Boiler Drake is the interesting thing. The fact they have a flame-spewing siege weapon. Also, if you are in a pinch, I would suggest you do what we did, which is if you see someone load the Boiler Drake a couple times, you go, aha, I think I can figure it out, unless I have a negative intelligence modifier. Let them seize it and use it. It's a great way to take out most of Viewmaster, and it makes them feel cool. They can't take it on the boat. It's too big. Let them have a giant fireball. They kind of need it, and it's a hell of a fight before then.
It was fun rolling all those D10. I remember you asked, and I was feeling really crappy. I was really not doing well. And you're like, do you want me to roll it, or do you want you roll it, Robin? I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm not rolling this. I want to roll all the clicky cleckies.
Even though you were so sick, you're like, no.
Even though
no,
I was like, no.
This
is what I'm here for.
This is what I'm here
Math
for.
rocks.
Let me roll the math rocks, please.
All right. And then my last two things for the invasion are my last couple things. So my goal, or pardon me, I believe there are two styles of DMing in this type of situation. One is to run it as is, rules on the table, and may the chips fall where they may. You don't control it. The dice control it. Totally valid. If that's the way you want to run it, you're right. It's your table. I think that's a valid way to run it. Okay. The alternative is to play around with the tension and to be in control of the narrative and tension such that when the players are succeeding, they should feel like they might not be in a moment. And when they're failing, they should see a glimmer of hope enough that they don't give up. Okay, you are back in the game Left 4 Dead. The director engine would do that with you when you were playing that game. It would give you supplies when you needed them. It would restrict them when you didn't. Okay, that is kind of it's the best engine for that type of shooter that I've ever seen, and I loved it. I think that if the players are totally screwed and they need backup, give it to them. Have lucky things happen. Have people emerge from the crowd. Have Darrett show up and throw a rock. Have something happen. And a good way to do this is if a player have some tokens set out. We use a system where people can buy things using channel points that they accrue by watching the stream on Twitch. But at your table, maybe have some coins set aside. Maybe have a set of dice that is really obvious that it's something else. And every time that something good happens to the players, like they get a nat 20, put a token aside. Maybe it's a disadvantage on a future roll because of a situational thing. A shingle falls off and distracts them. Maybe the light glints off their eyes or something like that. Cool. You spend that, something bad happens, okay? But every time a player character goes down, like to 0 hit points, add 1 to the something good will happen. If a player botches, same. If an enemy crits, same. And what you can do is you can play around with the tension of the narrative using a mechanical tool that allows you to feel like you're still being fair, but you're not feeling like you're being too harsh either. It's a way to basically have more fun and to feel like there's a system in place keeping you in check from making it too easy. It's a super basic mechanic, but it could be useful. And then
the random little encounters throughout the battle before we move on there were a nice touch. And the fishermen coming out to like help or distract, they weren't guards or like Solamnic knights or whatever. They're just like dudes holding fishing poles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that kind of connects the players to the town a lot more because they know you fought for them and now they're coming to fight for you.
It's the Spider-Man from the Spider-Man scene, right?
Yeah.
You mess with him, you mess with us.
And then, as the chat just pointed out, when one of them got turned to stone and then the other Draconians shattered him, it's like, oh, all of you are going to die. So hard for that. How dare you kill Jim? I think that was Jim. How dare you?
That was yeah.
I also really liked the touch of the blind one. Like that didn't really affect the combat too much, but it was something that could have happened in like easily, and it could have been anyone like walking in. Like you're in the middle of a siege on a town and you're trying to evacuate it, and things like that aren't necessarily anything that directly impact the actual fight that's going on, but do have that kind of indirect impact, and like that kind of also helps set the scene of like what's going on. And I don't know if that was one that was just kind of thrown in there.
It is actually. I used the random battlefield events here because I actually think it is super super useful. Like the fray system and the battlefield events. The fray is okay. Basically, the fray is if you touch the border, you take damage and some stuff happens. But the battlefield events are basically lair events. Like they're lair abilities that automatically go off at a random interval, Chris. Or they randomly go off at an automatic interval at an initiative 0.
Are they kind of randomized? Like were they?
Yeah, there's so
you didn't encounter.
So there's 2 fishers come to assist the characters. They appear in occupied spaces adjacent to the nearest random character. A blind Bozak Draconian with 1 hit point staggers into the fray. If killed, death throws go off. So that's a big one. That changes a lot of things if you take it out. A Draconian gliding overhead throws a fiery flask at 1 random character. That was about to happen, but you guys managed to succeed. Villagers on the docks shout their support. A random player character has advantage on their next attack roll. Those are all awesome. Like I love that. Like that, just kind of those little extra touches.
It fits the chaos of what is actually happening. Like when the Draconian came out, kind of just wandering around, his eyes slashed. I was like, wow, this is Saving Private Ryan stuff here.
But that felt so cool. And then my final thing at the end of this module does something really interesting, and without spoiling, it leaves Becklin's fate up to me. And it gives some options on here that completely change some of the other NPCs. Like what they did that potentially led to her death through misaction, or who knows, right? Or it could be that she's still alive. So I'm just wondering right now if I should set it up that Becklin's fate in our campaign should be tied to our Patreon subs. Kind of like the Jason Todd phone call from the 90s, where it's like, if you want Robin to survive, well, not this Robin, but if you want Jason Todd's Robin, you got to call this 900
number. COVID.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, I can say it now. So, folks, if you want Becklin to live, get us to 135 patrons by 2 weeks from now, and Becklin will live. 135? Should we say should be 5 or 10 more?
What are you at right now?
We're at 130, about to be 129. You think five, 6 more, or should we go 10 more?
I don't know. I don't know.
If we get
The other thing is I don't
50
want-
more before the end of the
She comes back as a Super Saiyan.
campaign, she comes back with Ispin.
Oh,
Ooh.
oh,
Now, it being
Yeah.
a ruse, that sounds like Ispin.
maybe.
I mean, yeah, we did want specific things.
The
to happen
debt
with this one, but-
collectors were after me. I owed a lot of money
I
to the
finished my
Islamic
debt.
mob.
My name is Nipsey.
My name is Nicky, Green Cloak.
Yeah,
It's been actually saved Becklin and like bring
because he's a Highlander. He came back from the dead. Okay,
Right?
so
Jesus.
let's hop into the questions from the chats now. So also I'll be serious about that. Like I haven't decided her fate, but if we get to we'll say 100 and 135, 140, depending on how long it takes her to come back, I'll change her fate to save her if you want. I don't know. So hopping into this, let us say Ross Arnold on the Dragonlance Facebook group. Thanks very much for the questions about the festival. I hope I answered that earlier. Grant Gould from YouTube was curious to hear what part of the preludes I like and which parts I don't like and what I would change. Hope that helped. And good luck with your campaign. You're starting some of the early Vogler stuff, and it feels like unneeded fluff. It's really helpful in helping you anchor in the setting. So I hope you can streamline it to what makes your players feel like they're connected. But you can probably cut some of it out. William from YouTube said, feel free to ignore this. Okay. No, kidding. Did you run into any issues with Levna fulfilling a similar role to Becklin? No, I just made her sarcastic and lazy.
Yeah, I love Levna. I love
What do you
Levna
made-
so much.
Levna's great because you just kind of like, you play her however you want, but Becklin is earnest and kind and aged. Levna is every Michelle Rodriguez character that she's ever played.
Yes.
Right?
We were so distraught when we thought she had fewer hit points than she actually did.
Yes, level up your sidekicks so you can use them. Would you recommend having PCs come from Vogler? Yeah, totally. They can all come from Vogler if they want. Any tips on balancing the war fight? Like I just said, the token system is a great way to do it. Alternatively, have a couple NPCs show up to help. Alternatively, have Darrett help. Dude's got 52 hit points plus. Like, have him come in and just to be like, wah! Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see. Having Cudgel and Becklin potentially die off stage. What are your feelings on that? I don't know. Tell me in the Patreon at patreon.com/dorktales. That's from William. My feelings on that are I can take or leave Cudgel personally. I think Becklin's the one that makes an impact on the players. But it's mostly because Cudgel's just got a dumb name, in my opinion. Chandra Magic, more seriously, did you make up the various openers for the characters or were they in the book? Why did you choose to do it that way if you made them up? Why did you change it from the book? Why did you change things if you did? I hope that makes sense. I customized it to the players, and when the players did something that didn't fit the module, I went with the players over the module. Because they're my friends, and the module and I are barely acquainted. In fact, the hard copy hasn't even shown up from Wizards yet. So I don't even know this module. We have never met face to face with the one I bought. I had to buy it twice. God
Yikes.
damn it.
But you got the better cover.
I did get the better cover, and I'm better get my refund. I'm so
was a
mad.
different cover.
Because, yeah, so I got the one with Lord Soth on the cover.
And the one
But,
that you
Yeah, so we will be giving, if I do get the other one in the mail eventually, we will be giving it away as a prize during one of our extra lives. So be sure to come and support charity. It's going to be really good. Or we'll give it away during Dark X. It's a good cover, though. Okay, so from Random Equinox on our Discord, what did you like about the preludes? I liked all of them. I didn't like the magic trials being so specific, but once you open it up, it was pretty good. And what'd you change? I mentioned that. For the players, what's your favorite part of Dragonlance so far and your favorite NPC?
Oh. Oh, holy crap! I need. Oh,
Darrett.
Garrett.
It's
Young
been-
Keanu Reeves, Squire Boy. Great. I love it. Love it so much.
I like
Nice.
Ispin.
I like his one too because you designed it.
Yeah. Favorite part, I think just the I really adored Witchlight and how it was so not like traditional D&D and adventure, but on the other side of that coin, I am loving how 80s action adventure hero story this is. Like this is I am feeling like I'm in the movies that I grew up watching as a kid and books that I've been reading. Like
Yeah.
I have felt like I'm just been inserted into this world, and it feels really fucking great.
This
Glad.
definitely hits me right in the nostalgia, like for a lot of that, and I am really enjoying that aspect of it so much. And like, there's been so many different game styles that we've done that have been like a little bit darker. Well, I mean, war is always dark, but that some of the games that I've played in just have a little bit more like different sort of things, and it's nice to get back into that like kind of classic high fantasy kind of thing. And I love like the just it feels kind of it's old and familiar, but it's also new. Like it's a new look at it. It's a new adventure. It's related to something that I grew up on, and but it's also like a new and a different story that we get to play with within that world. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I'm having a blast with this game so far.
I'm glad. Anybody else?
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of along the same lines. I'm really enjoying the traditional feel of this game. I'm enjoying, as we said, spoiler warning, not dying. That was nice.
That was
Thank you,
that was a close
Kelara.
call.
That
Twice.
was two close calls. um, just so yeah, my hit points. Sorcerers, great. Sorcerers acting like fighters, not always the best, but
Yeah,
it's
as-
how she's built and how I like her, so it's great.
Built different.
Right?
Who's your favorite NPC?
I don't know. I like Cudgel, but that's a dwarven thing, so
Yeah. You just thought about her. Dwarf best girl.
right, yeah, best dwarf. I like I like the douche nuggets because I like having someone to hate. I like Jarrett. Sometimes he gets on my nerves, but that's an in-character thing too. So, there's that. I like Ispin, but yeah.
Okay.
They all have their good points.
Did anybody not say what their favorite part was? Or their favorite NPC? Did you say, Cal?
I said my favorite NPC. I never thought about favorite part. Something happened during, I think it was session 3 or 4, that I didn't really grasp readily at the beginning as I found the character. And I found I was method act, like I was right in there, and it was like, doesn't want anyone to die. Not that he's cowardly or not that he's afraid of whatever, but like, what's the most important thing? It's not wealth, it's not power, it's not any of these things. How do I get as many good people to live and enjoy their lives as possible? And getting so into that and method acting and playing out the things are getting worse. Things are getting worse. Okay, how can we help? Okay, time is of the essence, and now we need to go to sleep. It was that for me was the best kind of like scene when it was like, we know these bad guys are liars. They're not just going to come in and like, use the place as a fort for like a couple days and then move on. We got to go. And that was the turning point when it was like, okay, shit is hitting the fan. It's time for you guys to get a nap in.
True. All right. So, other questions that are here. Ink Goblin in the Discord asked how advice handling the squeeze of all the mini meetings and encounters in town, because it's a very dense chapter with a lot of introductions to NPCs who may be important later. I would basically do what I said earlier. Have your cards separated and try to make it regimented, because they're kind of staggered in a way that if you breadcrumb the players, they will kind of meet them in kind of a popcorn fashion, just like, oh, here's one, oh, here's one, oh, here's one as they go. If you absolutely have to, boil it down to the most important ones. Because Darrett will always show up. You don't have to make a big deal about Darrett. He can show up later. I mean, you could honestly probably do it without a couple of them, but just do your best to wing it. Give them a brief introduction if you have to. And you can do it with a hand wave at like, oh, you saw them at the funeral, if you really must. And if you absolutely must, you can cut some of the side NPC interactions, but I would suggest trying to give the full thing if your players are big into role-playing. From Kiyama, make the town and NPCs more important and interesting. I hope I covered that earlier. Adherent on the Discord would like to see me discuss homebrew changes, particularly regarding enemy death effects. Like I said, DC 13 strength save to not lose your weapon in them. If you manage to free the weapon, 50% chance it's broken or in need of repairs. If you want a quick mechanical thing on that, a weapon that is broken or damaged, either if you're using botches on a 1 or a 2, or has disadvantage. Or you lower the damage dice by 1 type until it's fixed. Or you do something that I learned from Bob the World Builder, where you give the damage dice disadvantage. So if it's a D10, you roll the D10 twice, take the lower because it's blunt. These are a lot of mechanics that you can apply to your game that are pretty basic. I love botches though. Snowy from the Discord asks, what happened to the elf and the Kender merchant? You'll find out about the elf and the Kender merchant left town to restock and is coming home to be very surprised. Or maybe they're on the boat. I don't know. From Kranicht in the Discord and in the chat right here. Did you like the fray and battlefield effects? I'm iffy on the fray. I love the battlefield stuff. I wish that they gave you more than just the 6 options that they do, or the 4 or 5 options depending on the one. I think they're great. I look forward to them in the future. General thoughts on how it works. The phrase okay. I kind of get it, but it also seems like they could have done more with it, since it's just a border and the players are not going to usually go near the border because they're going to go toward the goal. All it really does is put them in a cage match, which, all right, cool. That's fine. But there's usually a way out of the fray. I don't know. That's kind of my opinion. It's cool. The battlefield part's cooler. I love the randomness of it and the way that war feels chaotic then. Tips for making the town feel alive. Already did that. Is Rizira going to try to keep the cat?
Probably, yes.
Okay, you need to come up with a name for the cat.
They named it.
Did you?
Sorry, yeah, she's dying right
Charcoal.
now. Charcoal.
Okay.
Yeah, it was charcoal. Sorry, I was trying to say it, but then I was about to cough and have a coughing fit. So,
Okay.
yeah, charcoal. I named it last game.
Okay, cool.
I like that name.
Also, for those who are wondering, Rizira did bring the donkey back after the battle. We hand waved it. The donkey was returned. The donkey ended up on a boat. It's fine. We got our ass.
There's an arc with like all the farm animals on it.
Yeah, it's an extra life game.
Rizira's arc. Oh my god, extra life game. I love it.
Yes.
Rizira's arc.
It's called The Real Ass of Vogler, and it's all about the donkey.
No, I'll run a game. I'll play DM as Rizira. Everyone has to play animals on the arc.
Shoddy the frog.
I'll be
Shoddy,
that.
a particularly sassy swine. Okay, so going down to Random Equinox, the gnome running the gnome flinger. Cool. Robo Luchador asks, not so much a how to run, but curiosity how will you handle the parts that are expanded by the board game? Unfortunately, we're not. We can't do the setup, and the board game was freaking expensive. Been racking my day with all sorts of questions. How is the setting changed to reflect the times better? And is any of that because the Hickman and Wise controversy a few years back that literally put Dragonlance on the no playlist till it was settled? That's a long and convoluted corporate discussion on a lot of it. What I will say is that I'm a little saddened at parts of this that they have watered it down a little to fit 5e rather than leaning into the setting. I think that's one of the problems with 5e from Wizards of the Coast, is that the setting is less important than the core mechanics a lot of the time, that they will lean toward the complete expanded rule set and ideas rather than like a customized world. But you can, thank you for all the subs. That's very wonderful. Who's that from?
Oh, thank you.
Braddox, thank you so much. Holy crap, Braddox, thank you.
Yeah, I think they just subscribed them or
Just
followed today too.
Oh wow, thank you so much, Braddox. That's
during
lovely.
this
Thank you
game.
so much.
Or run. That's amazing.
Yeah, so yeah, if you so that's one of the things I would suggest there. Knowing Ape asks, what do you do if your party already wants to murder Barkaris? They will. They will. Try not to let them, and if they do kill him, maybe he survives, or maybe there's another, he doesn't come back later, players. Obviously, he's not.
He has an eviler twin brother.
Yeah, Barkaris
who takes over
It's
the
precarious.
family.
Yeah.
It's
Who takes
precarious.
over everything, and he's worse.
Every single time you say Barkaris, I keep thinking Barkaris.
That's right. One of our patrons, Precarious, and one of our friends of the channel. So here's the deal: if you kill him, then his older brother Bricarius comes back and vows vengeance. All right, that's
There
what
we go.
happens. So that's the rule.
Except that he's actually kind of a cool dude.
No, I guarantee you, this Bricarius is an evil uncle. Okay, so
Self-insert fanfiction.
Hermes on the Hermes on the Facebook group says we are preparing for evacuation. Interested in what tips you have for running that part of the chapter. I hope you found that useful. Scaffold and assist them figuring out solutions. You can make it complicated after they know what actions they can take, but the worst thing in a role-playing game is when you feel like you have no options. When you feel, because it makes you feel as a player like you're dumb or like you're lacking information. Give them the information, let them figure it out. Make it complicated once they are progressing toward their goal, but give them the goal. From Cal, you want to ask a question about should we do any scenes differently or other reactions to meeting the other PCs in character? What do you think, Cal? Do we kind of?
I only wanted to touch on it, and maybe
Sure.
other people said. It's nobody's kind of fault, but I feel like it could still come. So this isn't what I would do different because maybe it has yet to happen. But connecting the three non-human PCs to the human PCs more. Like I actually don't even know if Aurontiros has introduced himself to Kelara. Like they've been in the same area.
I'm not sure he has specifically spoken to her yet.
Yeah.
Right. And Kelara was busy. I need to go back to work, or I need to go do medicine for the mercenary camp. Like she was busy, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
maybe there can be time to tie in the PCs, kind of like how right away Aurontiros and Hazeal had that connection in the tower. Maybe there are going to be other moments where one-on-one we can find that connection, and I look forward to that. There's no time limit on that, but that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. It'd be interesting.
I usually find that does end up happening if the players like kind of look for those instances, like when Riz left and then Hazeal was like, I'm frustrated with the situation, I'm going to leave too, I'm going to go find Riz. So that was a decision I made out of character so that I could have that connection with Riz.
That was great.
I feel like that's definitely something I want to do a little bit more of as well. Like I definitely feel like I've got like most of everyone down except for that one wizard, that one weird dwarven wizard with their weird magic as well. And it's like, okay, like the strange elven magic just kind of freaks me out and whatnot. And there's the like past sort of like missed connection-ish puppy love thing with Kelara, and then like Rizira is the bravest Kender, the bravest kobold. I know, but I'm kind of like, right? Why not both? And then in a trench coat. And there's but with Rizira, I was just like, I haven't actually talked with Rizira too much, and I've loved that like Jen and I have had very similar ideas, like out of character, being like, oh, I want to talk to this guy next, or I want to do this next. But I'm also kind of like, okay, Godfrey's a little like, I don't know about that one. And I want to talk more with Rizira as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think looking at it, part of what's happened is that because there's been a lot happening where we've been in the same space, it hasn't necessarily drifted that way because it's been happening around us. But also what's happening is all the backstory connections are the ones that are being played right now. And I think that was the thing. You guys were the keeners. I was busy and wasn't sitting in the chat very much when we were developing this. So I actually, with Kelly suggested it, but Chris and I developed that bit of backstory. So I had some connection to somebody else in the group before we started, instead of just being the local girl that you guys all met on the road.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to whatever this next bit is, because I feel like we're going to have maybe a bit of time to have some of those.
Especially if we have to play it all being on the boats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of some enforced.
The Shadow of War. Look, they're
Oh,
dogs.
geez.
Time.
Chapter 4. Puppies.
Yeah, especially that conversation where it's like, okay, there's an elf that kind of know magic. They helped defend the town. There's a sorcerer here. And all of it would make sense for these characters, these people, to kind of go off to the side and have a very Dragonlance moment where it's like, Kelara, what I witnessed on that battlefield, I had never dreamed I had seen, blah, blah, blah. Something mysterious.
Either that or
that's a good
thing of,
that's a good intro.
You're an elf. Do you know magic healing? Levna is really, really hurt. I need help.
Oh, that's
Sort
a
of
good
thing.
opening.
To drag you two over and just be like, all right, I need help here.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. We all kind of knew intrinsically out of character that the bard and the sorcerer shouldn't be healing people. With that was never a conversation that had to really be had.
But it would be a good point for potentially starting conversation on what we each can do.
Yeah, because it's not like you know that we couldn't. You can heal.
Oh no, I'm a bloody village girl. I started healing like 3 days ago.
Can other people heal? Like, you couldn't, and then suddenly you can.
That one's got a robe.
Everybody?
That means she's a sorcerer.
That's a
maybe she could heal.
I brought like Moonbeam down. That's like a healing thing, right?
That's an interesting
maybe it just
conversation.
Harms evil. They were obviously evil.
Punished by the moon.
Oh my god.
All right. So
now she just needs to win love by moonlight.
It's true. You can fight evil by midnight.
My work here is done.
So last things here. So JView has a question regarding the boiler drake, the cannon dragon. Since a number of them have seen in action, would you allow the information to be transferred to other applications once they reach villages that might have to withstand it? I mean, knowing how a tank works doesn't stop it from shooting you. Sure. Right? Like, they still have to stop the draconians that are manning it, right? So
well, no, I think they're thinking like if we were like, hey, we found this weird thing, like, could we use it to pass on a town so they could buy it or make it as a potential defense mechanism?
No, I would say that
that's
knowing
an object of destruction more than a defensive.
Well,
yeah,
maybe there's more chances to come across them and then use them.
I think if you salvage them, yes, but I think like creating them from scratch, that would be like if I told you how a gun works, go make a gun. That doesn't work, you know?
Can you tell me how a tank works?
Yeah.
In detail?
Yeah, you get a bunch of glass and you put water in it and then fish go in.
What kind of fish?
I mean, any type of fish, really. But
what's the pH of the water?
Are you talking salt water or fresh?
It's like as fresh as my Jinko jeans, and you want the water to have a pH balance similarly to Gwyneth Paltrow's alkaline water, but with some lemon in it.
Oh, okay. The lemon balances it out.
The lemon balances it out, really. So folks, that is pretty much all of our questions here. So I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. This the last time we did this, we didn't really have much to go on, but we had so many questions, so many comments, and there was so much that we were able to touch on here. I hope that you took some valuable things away from this. I think my favorite thing about this entire experience is that when I told the players, oh yeah, we're between chapters, so we're doing a how-to, and all of the players simultaneously went, oh yes, of course, that's what we do, and then have not stopped complaining for a week, especially Chris, that we're doing this tonight instead of playing the game, because he wants to hop back in so much. And as a dungeon master, as a storyteller,
I'm
there is no
actually
greater compliment.
okay that this isn't counting.
No, you're not. You hate it.
I've been planning technocracy all week, so I haven't thought about Dragonlance.
This is fair. All right, so folks, hey players, thank you so much for joining me for this how-to, for giving your opinions. Is there any last thing that you want to share with us before we log off? Or are we good to go?
I think that's pretty good.
Okay, there will be more dragons. There will be more lances in the times to come, or at least more drake spears.
I thought Lance was the guy buried by the rubble.
Yeah, it was sad. It was sad. All
Poor
right,
Lance.
so folks, that is going to be it from us. If you want to be part of the Dork Tales community, I strongly suggest you go and join the Discord, totally free. You can find the link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch. It's in our About Us. If you want to be more involved with Dork Tales or you want to help support the channel, though, I strongly encourage you to go save Becklin's life by joining the Patreon at patreon.com/dorktales, where you get additional content, additional rules and lores coming out for our homebrew settings. You also get access to this month 3 additional games, I believe, next month 4 or 5 additional games that are not broadcast for months and months and months. Everything from Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos, to Jen running a Mage of the Ascension Technocracy game, and stuff like that.
On Sunday.
And Session 0 is on Sunday. And then a special Dork Tales, the podcast, is coming out very soon, as soon as I have time to edit the damn thing, which is a satirical romp through a multiversal quagmire gumbo plane of reality that I think you'll really like. It's a fantastic way to support the channel directly, and I would love it if you were there. If we hit 150 patrons, we are going to have a Star Trek Adventures game join the roster, and at 200 patrons, I'm going to run Avatar Legends, the airbending style, not the blue people style, which will be fantastic. If we get 250, I'll run the other one if you really want it. But with that,
would you do the face paint? The blue?
I'd do blue. Why not? Sure. If you will, I will.
Where nothing but like shells and beads and like the blue?
Okay, we'll talk about that. That's for the hot tub stream.
Right.
And then a couple of other things that are coming
stream.
up. Yeah, we'll talk later. A couple of other things that are coming up on the channel that you need to be aware of is this Friday night, we have a How to Run Pathfinder 2nd edition stream. Our good friend and teammate Wei is going to teach myself, Robin, Cal, Krista, and Kel how to run and play Pathfinder 2nd edition. And then next Friday, we are going to be playing a session of Agents of Edgewater and kind of getting a sense for the system. It's going to be fantastic. And I hope you join us. It's going to be right here on Twitch at 7 p.m. And on February 4th at 6 p.m. on that Saturday, we are having a very special baby shower here on the channel, a live baby shower for Chris and his partner Caitlin. And I guess your baby that's coming. So.
Yeah, and the wee dork
First
that's
stream,
on the way.
stream.
Yep. So that'll be that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and hope people can check that out.
I hope you can too. But thank you so much. If you want to support the channel directly, be sure to spend your Amazon Prime sub here on Twitch. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Give the video a like and join the Patreon like these fantastic patrons. I want to thank our world building patrons, Shulton and Jade, the maker of monsters. Our divine patrons, DM Michael Gray, and my mom, Jan. Hi, Mom. My demonic patron, Precarious, who might show up as Bakaris' older brother in one of your games. Tammy, the Forever Cleric, who is the wizard of the Patreon. And, of course, the High Council of Patrons, Taryn, the Traveler, Buddy, Trizelta, Amberthist, Cubby Gummy, Raven with Baubles, Karasha Urquhart, Drew Thompson, Sergio, Chef Aladeth, Larouk, and Sorcerer Sanguine. You are all amazing, and running Dork Tales is a full-time gig, so thank you so much for allowing these dreams to come true and for me to eat. I really do appreciate that, because it is helpful to me running games. But with that, we will see you next time. here on Dragonlance next Wednesday night. Be safe, stay away from dragons and draconians. And don't
And
stick any...
lances.
Yeah, stay away from lances. Or stay away from just people named Lance. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.